Hello, everyone. We're live again.
Yo, yo, yo. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Come on in, come on in. We're live at 6 p.m. sharp,
Sharp.
Eastern Sharp Time.
Sharp. Oh, I just realized I completely missed a team. I was gonna do this.
Oopsies.
It's later on, though, so.
That's
we'll
okay.
fill it
You
in.
missed a bunch of teams yesterday.
That is true.
So we're back. This is our final day of our roster reviews. I think it's been nice being able to break it up like this. What do you guys think?
It's easier to digest content this way too, as well for the people who
True.
can't catch it live.
Yeah.
And also,
Because I feel burnout just writing down the notes for by the end of writing down notes for these teams. I can only imagine the burnout of listening to Team 18
Yeah.
on one
Give it up for
stream.
Team 18.
I feel like the way you're phrasing that is that it's like harder for the viewers. It's like, nah, I think it's still probably harder for us.
I mean, I do think there's definitely a lack of attention
Yeah.
the more we drone on, and also the longer we go on, the worse our like mental state is in, you know?
Yeah.
Like the less actual analysis
It's
we can
never in a
give.
good state, but
That's true. That's why it's even worse when we've been streaming for 5 hours and we're on like we're halfway through the second division.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think the main
I
thing
like the
is just
freedom.
that like hustle people don't tune in at the beginning and have absolutely no clue when we're gonna
Yeah,
get close to even getting the hustle.
true. Yeah, I don't
And then
like that
and then
you
you
kind
sit
of
through
have
the whole
to.
thing, and then we get to hustle, and we're like, all right, we're rushing through these now because we only have 2 minutes for each one, and then you just
Yeah,
kind of get
exactly.
screwed and have a bad review.
Yep. I agree. So we are back obviously with our season 4 hustle roster reviews. What do you guys think as a whole? How do you think the hustle teams stand up to the rest of the league?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I like almost all of them a lot. And then obviously the talent of the players as well can be seen in the rosters as well as the play that they'll do with them, I'm sure.
Very true. I think I when I'm rating the hustle teams, I think I need to take a step back sometimes and try and actually separate the player name from the team that I see. But at the same time, I do think that there is value in a player drafting comfort, because I think they're gonna just be more comfortable and be able to bring the better tech and perform at a higher level with the mons or the archetypes that they're comfortable with. But so, for example, if somebody always brings a gimmick team, it's like maybe you might internalize that a little more and bump them up a little bit and say, hey, this team isn't like objectively good, but we've seen you do good things with worse than this kind of thing. So high hopes maybe is a good way to put that.
Yeah, I would say that overall, when I look at these teams, I have less favorite teams on here than I did in Swarm, but I think part of that too is that in Hustle, a lot of the teams are just better constructed, and better constructed sometimes means less fun and less favorites.
Yep.
Because you're
Yeah, I
actually building
agree.
a good team. And so like when I look at Swarm, I see like all those colorful teams with like all those favorite mons that everyone has and just iconic mons in general, like that might not really work super well together, or like they work fine
Yeah.
together, but they're not like the optimal combo. I think that's one of the things I noticed going through this one is that there's less teams that are like, wow, I like every mon in the top 6 of this. It's like I like 2 of the mons, and then the rest are kind of need to be there.
Yeah,
So,
I think as we've moved up from Truant to Swarm to Hustle, my my rating, like plus minus, I guess, like the difference between the highest highs and the lowest lows is has been getting smaller and smaller, and I think if anything, that is the indication of getting closer to familiarity, getting closer to people who just know what they're doing in draft. Again, there are a couple people who honestly just draft for like whatever they want, and they kind of think differently than I do, and they value different things differently than me. So I think that's the only time that there's ever really an outlier, like a bad outlier. Not that there even were that many this time around in Swarm or in Truant, honestly. I think we had maybe 4 gimmick teams overall. Spoiler: DJ Barrera has a gimmick team, but it's not even that gimmicky.
Yeah, it didn't look that gimmicky. Like
Yeah, and then there was like Stormtide's team. What other teams would we say are gimmick teams?
Certainly not.
Oh, Toadie's team, the monkey team.
No, it's not a gimmick.
Yeah, there weren't really that many, but even in those, some of those people just value different things differently. So, I don't know about you guys, but I am ready to just kick it off and get right into our reviews.
Yeah, so we have Max in the chat asking if we can do the European players first. So I think that's fine, but I need to confirm who all of them are. So I know we have.
Okay, that would be Bunhara is second, Max is third, Alice is 7th. Maybe we could expedite Alice. And we can expedite ZebstrikemDown. I think that's everybody who's EU. Sorry, EU and Britain.
True.
Isn't Trace?
Trace is in China.
Oh.
So I don't think they'll be tuning in anyways.
Either way. Yeah.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh, Az says that they're European as well.
Sweet sorrows.
Yeah, I believe you. Okay, so we'll make sure to expedite yours straight to 16th.
Yes. Okay, wait. Just
and that's your review. No, we're expediting you to 16 out of 16 on the review standings. That's your whole team review. Have a good night.
Good. Just looking at the order, then yeah. So these two are fine. We'll move. We can maybe like swap these two, and then
let's just do. I think if we just do Zeb early, that should be good.
Are we not gonna do AZ?
He's not actually European.
No. Okay. Well.
Or sorry, we can do like let's start then with Alice. Do Zeb, and then we'll just start from the top with Matt because Bunhara and Max are early in the order as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can still probably put Matt after these two, but just for because we're gonna be jumping around.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds like a good plan.
Let's go over to who we're starting with. We're starting with Alice then. So
yeah, we'll start with Alice.
All right.
Chat out. Tune into Toadie's stream. Oh, Toadie's not streaming. That's why I'm not tuned in.
Oh, that's a good point.
I'm like, wow, I'm so underprepared. Usually I have all this shit open. But,
yeah, let me stream my OBS to you. There we go. Now you can see.
There we go.
Why do you have to start with the stall team?
Why do you hate the stall team?
No, I said, why do I have to start with the stall team?
Oh, start with the stall team. True, we should start now and then just like be trickle marketing some little bits of info all throughout the 16 things to say, all right, your first battle's over now.
Yeah. It's always fun opening up these teams and seeing the type chart for the first time, or like seeing like the typings for the first time and seeing what I missed when glancing at it on the roster screen.
Yeah. Do you load it into like a builder that shows the weakness chart? Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying I look at the literal roster list. Like I don't even go into the teams, which doesn't have any of the typings on it, and so I just miss typings half the time. Like I'll just notice certain things. Yeah, especially with the Terra captain. I'm pretty much glancing past the Terra captains.
I think that's just a skill issue.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I'm speeding through this. I go for speed, not for skill. So, so you want to hear what I said? I said 5 out of 10, and I said stall. That's 5 stalls, and then This is the only insight that I have on this. I said doesn't like hazards, doesn't have great removal. That's pretty much all I said because we've talked about stall a lot. We know what stall does, and it's not that like it super hates hazards, but it's like, do you want a stall team coming in on hazards constantly when your only removal is Rotom and Skarmory? Or am I missing somebody? Like those are the only two removal, right?
So I think that the word stall kind of has a misconception because I would not consider this stall. I would consider this balance. And I think the difference is that like balance tries to position their offensive mons more carefully to get like extra value out of them and be able to support them through status, through clerics, through a bunch of just standard support means into winning via an offensive like setup or breaker, etc. And seeing this team with like Excalibur and Iron Boulder as basically the payoff, I think this is like definition of balance. It's very fat, right? It has an unaware mon, it has regen
Nice.
mons, but I think Regenerator is more like okay, stall teams do have regen, but I think that's just a I don't not collateral damage, but it's like a coincidence, I guess, that they both coincide.
I think
So yeah, I would definitely call this like the win condition is not frustrating you to click the X button. The win condition is not PP stalling you or killing you to toxic. It can have those elements, and I think that's why often balance is confused with stall.
I think you're defining it more in like a ladder sense though. I think this is draft stall. You're never really gonna see a full actual true stall team in draft, and if you do, it loses to taunt. Or like
See, I think that's why there's such a misconception though, because I don't think there has to be a distinction between ladder stall and draft stall. Like the term stall it came from ladder. We're just using a ladder term to describe a draft team, and this doesn't have the same win condition as stall ladder teams.
No, but I would so I guess technically it's not a stall team, but I think that calling it a stall team in the context of all the rest of the rosters that we're going to see here, I think is still fair. When you said that like the win condition is getting these guys in, which is true, that is a key win condition, but it also definitely is a win condition of PP stalling and making you click the X button in a lot of cases.
It could, yeah.
With some of these
But
mods. I think you're
vastly
underrating that element of this team being the win condition, especially with Alomomola.
That's fair. So let's talk a little bit more about the team then. Lee, do you have insights on the team instead of just like the archetype?
I mean, my notes, I have Bax, Glowking, Rotom X. This is a lazy team written all over it. I love the core. I drafted it, made it to playoffs in season 2 with it. It's a lot of fun to play with, and then this is a lot more fat than what I had going in with it, and I think that was like a weakness I had when I was playing a similar team, was that that I didn't have defensive options to check things when Slowking needed an assault vest or something, and this team actually covers that pretty damn well. And then I also have that it looks kind of rock weak, and if you get your boots knocked, you're gonna have some struggle keeping the hazard pressure off. But I like the core. I like the finishers, and then I'm just really excited to see Boulder.
I actually agree with most of what you're saying. I think the team is also very weak to just knock off, because I think the game plan is going to be, I don't care about hazards. I've got like Magic Guard Clef. I've got like double regen. I'm going to like slap boots on stuff and outmaneuver you and not care about them. But then having the knockoff onto the Slowking and the Aloe then starts to really chip into their survivability when you're not doing anything to prevent the opponent from setting the hazards.
It's
you're not
like
running
slow
the taunter.
Positioning.
Yeah, exactly. So, I do think it's knockoff week, and I do think that players that have sauce-minded brains could really take advantage of the team with like endeavor strategies or suicide strategies that are just designed to take one thing down with them. Because teams like this
Just
they
punch a
tend
big
to
hole
start
in
to
it.
fall like dominoes, right? Where
Yeah.
as soon as the Aloe drops, then suddenly the responsibilities that Aloe had are now shifted to Slowking, and it can't do them as efficiently, and it starts to leak HP that it's not healing off of regen, et cetera, et cetera. So it starts to go downhill from there once like one piece of the puzzle is removed. So
I
that's
like
my
the
2 cents.
I like the interpretation that sauce-minded players are both sauce-minded because they come up with the sauce, and also sauce-minded because their brains are literally melted sauce sometimes, and that's what's
Sauce
coming out.
minded because they're looking
You just got
Google.
lost.
So
I believe I
lost.
have it as an 8.5 out of 10 with the lazy bias.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do think that's fair because looking at some of the mods on here, I know that you would really like them. Honestly, even have you drafted Mudsdale before, Lee?
No, I haven't
That's a
actually.
cool
It's
one.
always been like I think I drafted it once and traded it in Grace in like the MCPL once.
Yeah, I think you'd like Mudsdale. It's very consistent.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's an
Like for
interesting
what it
mod.
is, for its 9 points, I think it's a Haunts.
I do be loving Hanses.
So I definitely hate. Sorry, not hate. That's not a good word. I definitely dislike the team more than you do. I don't hate it. I do
I
think the
hate
team
it.
has a passing grade, but I think it's like barely passing just because I do think it can be abusable.
Yeah.
It takes more skill to operate than other teams that have like more win cons and rely less on positioning, etc. So I have this team at a 5.5 out of 10 to your 8.5, I think you said.
Yeah.
And Tody, what do you think?
Well, I said 5, but that's also like a gut reaction just looking at it. My opinions on this are usually more just bias of like what I like about like if I
Yeah,
like the team
that's
or not,
fine.
and whether
Gotta have one
regardless of
Joker
how
in
good
it.
they are. Because I actually think that like the team can do well. Like I don't think
Yeah,
it's a
for sure.
5 out of 10 in terms of output. I think in a way it might end up being a little matchup fishy too, because it's like there are some matchups that are just gonna be like, what does this player do into these mons? Like if they just don't have an answer for like a
Yeah, like
specific
if they
trio of
draft
them.
poorly,
Yeah, and
they're gonna have not good answers to the backbone.
yeah, but I also think that even in the matchups that like are not bad matchups for the opponent, it doesn't mean that it's a bad matchup for this team. Like you can still
Yeah.
always do stuff with that. And just one quick point I want to say about the Mudsdale, which I kind of like it with it being a Terra captain, is that one of the reasons I actually really like Mudsdale, but I've never drafted it. I used it in a couple like playthroughs and stuff, and some just random ladder teams, but I've
Yeah.
never drafted it. And I think the reason is because it doesn't really stand out when you just look at the typing and you just see a mono ground type, and it's like not a low tier, it's like a mid tier mono ground type. And sometimes if you're looking for a ground type, you're kind of like consciously trying to avoid being like, I don't want my ground type to be a 9-point mon.
Yeah, you
But
never
when
want to
it's
cheap out.
but when it's only a ground type and nothing else, then it's like, well, I want my good ground type to be a couple things maybe and not just be a ground type. And so I feel like that's at least why I've been like deterred from drafting it, even though I would enjoy using it too. So I think making a Terra captain is a cool way to like make it not just that ground type. Downside with this team being that it is the only ground type on the team, so maybe especially with Alomomola, you don't want to be too volt switch weak.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think there's
team.
I do think it actually makes bringing your ground type, I don't want to say easier, but like it kind of gives you like mental clarity. You know,
Yeah.
there's so much relief when you don't have to worry about a 4 times weakness to like on your ground type, right?
Right.
If
Yeah.
it's Garchomp or if it's Swampert
Or like any,
a lot
dual
of
ground
those,
type.
yeah, any
Except for
even like
ground
Gliscor,
seal.
like things like that. There's so many. It's almost like bringing them. You need to have certain supports, but honestly, just having mono ground is so simple. It makes
Yeah.
life very easy, and it makes the things like it's going to be less susceptible to random coverage, and the things that it beats more handedly, I think.
This is a serious question. I'm trying to think of any ground type combination besides ground steel that doesn't have a 4x weakness? I think ground electric doesn't. Ground ice
There would be a lot.
doesn't. No, I mean like
Ground bug.
there are a lot of ice dual types
Ground
that aren't
normal.
used. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I guess ground normal doesn't. Yeah, it's just that so many of the
Ghost.
main ones you think of have
Ground
that
dark.
4 times weakness, usually to ice.
Yeah,
But-
the ones that your brains go to, because those are usually the like draft all stars for ground types. That's kind of
either
why I
4
was
times weak
mentioning
to
like
ice or grass.
the flying, the water, and the
Yeah.
dragon are kind of the 3 that your mind go to.
Yeah. And rock.
Is there a ground fire type?
Camera-Up.
Camera-Up.
Camera
yeah.
up. Thank you.
I knew there was one that's just kind of a shitter, but
Yeah. Mega camera up to sick. Anyway, before we go on a tangent though, I like the
been on a
team
tangent.
honestly. And it looks like fun to pilot. It takes me back to days when I used to draft very bulky balance cores like this. But I don't think it will necessarily hold up against people who are comfortable playing against this and have been playing against it for years, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of the company that you're in now. So with that, let's move on to
Next
talk
we'll do
about
Zeb.
Zeb.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can take it from the top.
All right, so I'm gonna start the timer for this one too. I didn't do it for
Yeah,
the first one, but
Yeah, who wants to go first for Zeb?
this is the one that I forgot, so I don't really.
You
have
forgot.
anything.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
Lee,
I,
you
when I
want
saw him in that chat, I was like,
my
wait, I
list.
remember rating Zeb. Is he not playing this season? And then I looked.
So
but I
Lee,
just skipped
let's
over
get you to
him.
take us from the top, and then I'll say my piece, and Tody, you can start furiously typing.
I already typed something, but it's not good, so
All right.
just, you guys go first.
What do you think, Lee?
I said this team's very good at having a hazard game. I think the setting and removal options are elite on this team, and that's really going to help Hydreigon and Gallade be like really good breakers or endgame pieces. I like the Sand Splash on this team. The Sand Splash is kind of Zeb's thing these days, I think.
Yeah.
It feels like every time I look at his team, he has a Sand Set or an Excadrill on it. And that's just... I played with the Sand Core before, and it was a lot of fun. It was cool.
Mhm.
I said that the could probably upgrade the Terras, but I can't read my own writing and see what I was going to say about that.
They exist.
Yeah, they definitely exist.
What's this chicken scratch Pokemon?
Yeah, honestly, it's bad.
Wait, Terra Talonflame?
Ha 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 ha.
Maybe I don't think I was rushing to Talonflame as a Terra Captain in my thought experiment, though. That
I
had.
wouldn't
a
either,
chicken
but it is
scratch joke.
the best chicken on the team.
Oh no, I wasn't. That word isn't Terra. Okay, I've found my thought process in that a lot of these
I don't actually hate the Terra
bottom
captains of this team.
that the bottom part of this roster and Gigalith could probably upgrade to Tyranitar without really noticing anything. But I think he said something in chat the other day about why he doesn't have T-Tar on there,
Yeah.
and I trust his
Still a
opinion.
fighting week if he goes T-Tar.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, Gigalith is already fighting weak, right?
Yeah, but it's not 4 times.
Are you staying in on the close combat? It makes it easier to run a Choppleberry. Maybe you don't die to like a banded CC
Yeah.
that T-Tar would.
But I also think I'm like not as sad if I lose Gigalith to a close combat than I would be if I lose my 16 or 17. I don't know what T-Tar is.
Yeah, because it's better. If you're more sad to lose a Tyranitar than a Gigalith, that means that Tyranitar is better. Right?
Yeah, but then you have those points elsewhere on the team, so you're still getting the value of the Sand Setter. But if you have to lose it, if you have to sack your Sand Setter, in that case, you're not losing also the Mon that's doing other things. You know?
Yeah, but you're also
If
just
we're-
not
if
running
we're talking
the
about
risk of
Sand
losing a
Splash.
Stoutland, I guess.
Yeah. Zeb does say in chat, yeah, main reason for no T-Tar is that T-Tar feels forced in a Chopple. I think we've kind of talked about this in Discord, but just to kind of show my stance, I do think that I personally prefer T-Tar, but I definitely understand wanting to not have to worry about that. Kind of similar to what we just said about Mudsdale, actually, where like it's just nice to have the mental clarity of like not having to worry about it. You know,
Yeah.
it's one less thing on your mind, and you do have ways of supporting it through like Gallade, Prim, Talonflame, and Weezing that can take on the fighting
Mhm.
types, but it's totally just a personal preference. And I think that personally, when Gen 9 came around and gave it knockoff, I'm thinking there's no way that I'm gonna draft a Sand team that doesn't have
That's true. Yeah,
Tyranitar on it.
it does make T
But it's
a lot
also just
better,
a
though.
shiny new bias button. So
And yeah, I have this team at in 8 with 0.5 in brackets.
nice. I have it fairly similar, and for context, I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning. I actually think my ratings for Hustle are almost always going to be more harsh than other divisions because I think there's a higher standard of expectation. That's what's the word? An unnecessary word because they mean the same thing. But so I did rate this actually an 8 out of 10, but it is like one of the highest of the division just because I think Sand Splash is so strong.
Yeah.
A couple of things I think
That's
are
Excadrill, not Sand Splash.
Yeah, thanks. Sand Splash Alola.
Yeah.
A couple of things I think that are kind of weak is that Talonflame doesn't ever actually feel like real speed. And I know that Zebstrika is on the team, and that if anybody's going to ever bring Zebstrika, it's you, right? It's going to be Zeb who, I mean, it brings it at least a couple
It
times
got
every
buffed
season, right?
too. I don't think it's a bad bring in some matchups.
What did it get buffed by?
Trailblaze.
Okay,
Yeesh.
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, both your 110s can't hold it. Both your 110 speeds can't hold an item either.
Exactly.
That's what I was thinking, too.
So yeah, what I'm kind of getting at is like Talonflame can be fast, but its role on the team is rarely going to be be the fastest thing so that you can revenge kill things.
Right.
And also got high horsepower in Gen 9, which is nice.
Yeah. High Hans.
And
Horsepower.
Excadrill just needs there to be stand up, right? Which isn't going to be hard because you can just run Smooth Rock on Gigalith more than you can run it on T-Tar, and I will admit that. So barring those two, your fastest speed is like just the 110s with Gallade and Ogerpon. But at the same time, I'm making a lot of exceptions. It's like I'm not counting Zeb, I'm not counting Talonflame, I'm not counting Drill and Sand and stuff. So it's like there will usually be a situation where you have something higher than 110. But looking at it just like on a piece of paper rather than what's happening in a battle, makes it look like 110 is kind of the upper cap.
Yeah.
To me. But it's not. The hazard game is really good, like you said. I do think that Hydreigon is not supported the best. Like it's I feel like fighting types against the Sand Core are already coming, right? And so they don't need any more prep for the Hydreigon. Kind of forces Talonflame to be even more defensive than it was.
Especially not as a Terra captain for Hydreigon.
Yeah. That's kind of the trade-off here. Is I do like the Terra Water Pond, and I think Terra Water Pond is really good. Just in general, it has nothing to do with the Sand team, but I think like paired with Mega Gallade, I feel like they share fairly similar roles. Just have different type matchups.
I mean, he has room if he wanted to. Like if it doesn't work out, that he could just switch over to Hydreigon. I think that's still in the cap.
Definitely.
So,
and I do think that Weezing, all things considered, is honestly a decent captain. I don't think it's going to be as consistent as some of the other levitators.
Yeah.
That like to come in and just like to check things. Yeah, but Weezing on Sand is tried and true. Prim on Sand is tried and true. Talonflame's fine, but I think pairing Talonflame with Hydreigon means it has to be the fighting check, it has to be the fairy check, it has to be like the U-turn switch all the time, which are things that it likes to do, but again, that eats into its kind of fake speed. Main reason for Hydra was I wanted a dark special attacker and ground immune, and Mandy was gone. That's fair. I do think, again, that like...
Is Mandy really...
I mean, T-Tar, right? T-Tar can be your dark type, and then find a ground immune that's not the fastest mon on your team. But alas. Sorry, what did you say, Toady?
I misinterpreted. So I thought he was saying that he wanted a dark special attacker, and I wouldn't...
Oh, no, those are 3 check marks that he wanted. Yeah. So yeah, I did have that at 8 out of 10, and honestly, I think it's in my... At least it's in my top 5 ratings of the league. It was unintentional, because I went into it thinking, oh, great, here we go again. Another Zeb Sand Splash team. But Yeah, it actually does look pretty good.
I forgot about the timer. It's over.
Yeah. Any
Yeah,
final remarks?
We've been yapping.
Yeah, we have been yapping. I think we're good to move on. Let's maybe just finish out the EUs actually, and
Yeah,
we'll move on to Max now.
Oh, I was gonna do Bun and then Max because they're in order. But...
Or sorry, Bunhara first and then Max. Yep.
Is Bunny you?
Yeah.
Neat.
All right, so I got Bun at I said 9 out of 10. That might be a little high.
Interesting.
I just think it's a well budgeted team.
That's fair.
I think it's like just it's one of those teams that you kind of look at and be like, wow, how did they like kind of squeeze this all in to this range? I like Terra Dirge. I think Terra Dirge is and maybe this is different.
Wait, Bun is -4. Wait.
What?
All right, get out of here. Go to Max. Bunhara's -4.
She can wait her turn.
Well, we're already started talking. We'll do Max.
Okay.
Next.
Well, you got away with it this time.
Max
I'm
is
watching you,
one,
Wazowski.
so.
From Florida. All right, now I don't want to review the team anyways.
Yeah. Well, it has a gator on it though, so it's actually fine.
Oh,
actually,
this is the Florida team.
Yeah. We should have known just by looking at that. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I think Terra Dirge is a mon that's like and this might be different in Hustle than how I would be describing this, but I think that's like a kind of mon that's like really annoying to prep for, and the kind of Terra captain that you might sort of be like, all right, I'm gonna cover Terra Fairy and I'm gonna cover like Terra Water, and then if it's something else, then all right, we'll figure it out on the fly. Because there's just so many things that it could do that you're going to be wasting resources trying to prep for every possibility. And I think that's a huge benefit for it defensively on this team.
Fair.
And then outside of that, I mean, I just like the Samurott having it's just some good like kind of like specialist mons in here with like unique moves that you just have to be like might prep differently for every team. I think this. What did I say? That I said that there was some weakness. I said maybe a little ground weak outside of Enamorous. Which is that still true? Yeah, I think that's.
I said that's true.
Yeah, because Enamorous is the only
real safe switch you have. Yeah, like you never really want to bring Enamorous in on things, especially if you're not running boots. Is Serena. Yeah. Right. Even Swellow is like, again, it's just risky bringing in your offensive mon. High risk, high return. You do just get an extra attack off. Yeah. But I don't know if that's a high. Sorry, I don't know if that's a high percentage play.
Yeah, I do think though that Serena can come to a lot of games with this team, especially just as a spinner. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that Serena's kind of the best ground answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the top six saying, what do I want to leave at home for Serena? My ground type, my Samurott.
I think it's just matchup dependent. I think it just depends on the matchup. Like sometimes you might not bring Enam and you just have Serena as the only one, or maybe sometimes the Bolt doesn't look great. Bolt doesn't have Bolt's really good. I like Bolt a lot, but sometimes he just doesn't have the right coverage for a team because that coverage is nothing. He has body press. And that's pretty much his only coverage. Or maybe Samurott doesn't look super good, or like, he is not going to have great opportunities to get the spikes up, or he's weak to something that's faster than him and he might be pressured into being Scarf. Or maybe Nidoqueen isn't necessary. I don't know. I think you can fit it into a few of these kind of setups.
Yeah, I think it can come. I think it's hard to fit, personally. Lee, do you have any thoughts before I'm maybe overcritical on the team?
I just like on Toadie's remark on fitting Serena in, I'm on your side, where it just doesn't look like hazard control is really an option on this team unless you're running Defog Scizor. Just because a lot of your bulk also comes from your top six. This team doesn't really have a lot of things that can stay in and take hits except for Skeledirge and Scizor, and that means you have to be running like BizDef, Skeledirge, and Special Defense Scizor almost every game.
Bolt can take a lot of hits even though it doesn't have recovery.
Yeah, Bolt is bulky.
Yeah, it's got a lot of HP. Maybe I just missed that, but it just feels like you're bringing this team doesn't look like it has to sacrifice a lot to play a game around hazards that get set up against it. And then your only setters are Samurott, which honestly isn't a bad thing. It's the best spike setter in the draft. But then your only other option for rocks is Nidoqueen, and that can be tough because Nidoqueen wants to be clicking attacks sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of the times, I think.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's fair. I think if anything, even something more like a Nidoking would actually be better. Just because it's more likely to have offensive pressure against what it's sitting in front of.
To get the rocks
So rather than being the defensive switch to, well, it can still switch into like fairy things, but like Nidoqueen might not switch out every fairy in front of it, right? As opposed to Nidoking would have a wider range of things that it threatens out, therefore has more opportunities to click the rocks. But I don't think that's a huge problem, and I'll let you finish.
No, I think I'm mostly done on my thoughts.
Okay. What did you rate it out of 10?
6.5.
6.5. Okay, I also had it at 6 actually. So I was really surprised to hear the 9 out of 10, but I do think your some of the pros you mentioned are true. I think the Terra Captains are really strong, and honestly, just slapping Terra Normal, Specs Boom Burst, or like Flame Orb Facade Swellow is actually just very, very strong, and 125 speed is really good.
Yeah.
I do think, kind of like Serena, I do think it is a little hard to fit in. If anything, you're fitting it in over Enamorous more times than not over anything else.
Yeah.
But my and sorry, the bulky mons you do have really good offensive, like flexible offensive capabilities.
Yeah.
Like Skeledirge
or
can
just
be
pressure.
offensive. Yeah, Skeledirge
Like-
can be offensive. Nidoqueen does have a good range of things that it beats with Life Orb.
Yeah.
Serena, even if you're just running Assault Vest Serena or Bulky Serena, it does have the coverage to beat a lot of things that you would need it to beat. And obviously, Raging Bolt and Scizor are very bulky and have good offense. I don't need to clarify that. I do
Yeah.
think that one of my main gripes is the speed on this team is really bad. There's only one Mon that's faster than 100 until you get to Swellow, the bottom two Mons, and it's Enamorous, and it's barely faster than 100, you know? So, and plus, given that Enamorous is, I think, the easiest switch out for Swellow, which is pretty much your only other speed, because even Taurus could be seen
You're probably not running
as
him
like
at
an
max speed.
intimidate
Yeah.
switch, right?
He's on the team for defensive purposes.
Yeah. So I do think, yeah, the speed is a really, really big problem for me. And also the quality of spinner that the team has with the Samurott, I feel like is a big loss of potential. If you had a really good and like a top tier spinner that you feel good about bringing every week, Samurot's value goes through the roof, and you start to just win games based on hazards. But your only removal now is Scizor's defog, Swellow's defog, things that you don't want to be clicking those buttons in the first place, but also just remove your own spikes, right? Like those Mons have better things to do. So if you ever want to play the hazard game, you have to bring Serena, which means you have to drop Nidoqueen, Skeledirge. So I can see Samurott not coming to a lot of games, and I can see Enamorous not coming to a lot of games. And when either of those don't come to a game, you don't have a water and you don't have a fairy, right? So then Skeledirge now has to be your fairy or your water, and I feel like it's a bunch of compounding effects that can have an impact on battle. That maybe it's hard to see because it always looked like there's an easy 6 to bring, but then dropping anything out of the top 6 means that the next ones have to try and make up for it, and I don't think they can.
I think that's fair. I mean, I'll be honest, I rated it high because I like Bolt, Dirge, and Samurott and Swellow.
Yep. That's fair.
So
That's very fair. I'm definitely trying to think of it more pragmatically, I guess, or practically.
and
I think in a practical situation, these are the difficulties that you would come up with, or that you would encounter, that other teams don't necessarily have to encounter, right? Now, I don't think that having a strong top 6 is bad, for the record, but I think that a lot of the top 6 of this team is so integral to the team that and is not easily replaced in the bottom core, and I think that's kind of my main gripe. Also, the survivability on the team is exactly Scizor Skeleturge, which I think really pigeonholes them into being the main survivability on the team as well. That's my thoughts. So I still think it's 6 out of 10. It definitely passes. It has a lot of good things for it. The offense is great. There's a lot of setup opportunities. I think, does Samurott have Swords Dance? I don't remember. I think more often than
I know
not
regular
it'll be like Scarf.
Samurott does.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Cool. Well, we're definitely out of time on this one, unless you have anything you want to add.
No, I've said my piece.
Okay.
All right, let's head on to Max, and then we'll take it from the top
other EU
after
person.
And then we just go back to Overmatt and basically start fresh.
Yeah. All right, timer's going.
Okie doke.
Who wants to start?
I just yapped a lot, so someone else take the spotlight from me.
Lee, I feel like you haven't spoken in a bit.
Sure. This team is a ball of stats, and I like that in teams. I think they're fun to pilot. I think the pivots on this team are very good. I think Treads and Terapagos as spinners and rockers are absurd. I think the... Huh?
Nothing.
I think Treads and Uxie would be a better Terra combo than Zera and Articuno, personally.
True.
I said Zerud and Uxie. I said the same thing, that I think there's a better Terra combo here than these two.
And that's not even coming from a Zera hater perspective. I just think that Articuno is a lot of is kind of wasted potential on your Terra board when Uxie is so good.
Yeah, true.
Hey Max.
And I haven't seen Terra Treads go off, but in my head it can't be bad.
Hey Max. Half of these mods are not legendaries. They're mythical.
I was gonna say, I literally, when I looked at this team, when Max told me he was going mono legendary, I looked at the team and I'm like, these aren't even legendaries. So I pulled up a snip.
3 of them are legendary.
I pulled up a snip of the definition of legendary, and this is what I found. Paradox Pokemon are considered to be their own category of Pokemon, thus they are not legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, they're like Ultra Beasts.
While there can be Paradox versions of legendary Pokemon, such as Walking Wake or Iron Leaves, these Paradox Pokemon are also not considered to be legendary Pokemon. Max says same thing. It is very distinctly not the same thing. And you are a fraud.
Yeah. And then mythicals are like event distribution only or something. So the only ones that are legendary are Terapagos, Uxie, and Articuno.
True. Because even like Victini and Manaphy are mythical,
they're
right?
Mythical, yeah.
And
Zerud's mythical.
Is Uxie mythical too?
No, mythical's Uxie's legendary. That's what I said.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, Zero Aura.
So the legendaries are
Victini, Zero Aura, Victini, Zerud,
stuff.
Manaphy are the 4 mythicals.
Yeah.
Treads and Slitherwing are Paradox, and then we have Terapagos and Uxie and Articuno are all legendary.
Yeah. So if I were to draft a legendary team, I would be personally fine with drafting mythicals.
Yeah,
I think that's like
I just
close
think it's funny
enough.
that it's like a technicality that they're not.
I don't know the difference at a quick glance between legendaries and mythicals, but we're yapping again.
Yeah, it's okay. I draw the line at Paradox. Paradox
it should be legendary plus, like legendary rarity
plus.
or higher.
You're playing Hearthstone now.
Technically above that. So, yeah.
Okay, so real talk. Actually about the team, the first thing that I noticed was that it sucks. Just kidding, sort of.
Yeah.
No, the first thing I noticed is that Terrazera, I am a believer of it, and I will keep saying that. But I also think this is a team where there's an offensive presence with the rest of the team that makes it so that Zera's low base attack and special attack are not that big a deal. You know, you kind of just need it there to be the fast thing to clean up what like Banded Victini and Slitherwing and like SD Zarude and Tailglow Manaphy couldn't quite finish off. And those are always the situations that fast cleaners want to be in. So I do think this team is actually setting up Zera fairly decently to actually fit that role and not just be the main setup win con that that teams have historically tried to force Zera into. I read chat. I read chat and Max said thank you, Zeb.
I drafted Zeb the player on my team.
Yeah. That draft would suck. His stats would be probably all below 50.
Yeah. But I would have a Sand Splash.
I like that there's 2 spinners. Sorry, there's 2 spinners and a defogger. That's nice. I don't think Articuno is going to come all the time, but you never feel bad about bringing at least one of Treads or Terrapagos, right? Those are really good. It does lack some survivability. I think the only mono with recovery is what Slitherwing and Articuno. I think
Zarude has synthesis.
We're not. Oh, it has synthesis. Okay, I was gonna say we're not gonna count jungle healing. But yeah, it does have synth. That's true. And there are a couple drain punchers and leech lifers.
Oh, so that means that my team does have recovery then.
Oh, through
didn't ask.
Through Zarude.
It didn't ask. Yeah. The team obviously it's a ball of stats. It's going to be extremely flexible. You can run, like AV Treads or Fizdef Manaphy with Take Heart. Terra Articuno is a really good blanket check as well. Just having great defensive stats with key types like Stab Freeze Dry. It's just kind of always going to be good. So you can just freeze dry with Terra Ground, freeze dry with Terra Fairy, with whatever, and just have it be whatever you need it to. With as long as it doesn't have the thing you're trying to beat isn't recovering.
Mm-hmm. Time's up, by the way. Just ended.
Yeah, that's okay. I think that's my thoughts. I do think it doesn't have a great hazard game. Treads doesn't always want to I think Treads would rather always have spin than always have rocks.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Terra Articuno is your fairy. Funny, I actually have a note exactly saying that the fairy on the team is Articuno. So I rate the team 6 out of 10. Like, all things considered, it's actually not bad. It does have great stats. It has great offenses. I do think there's a big speed chasm.
They're all legendary.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, it's still a plus.
Yeah.
There's a speed chasm, though, between Zera and Zarude from 143 to 105.
No, it's 106 with
Treads. 106.
Oh, sorry, Treads is 106. Okay, sorry. You're right. Oh, it's fine. We're good. We're good. Yeah. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree. My main point was honestly just do Uxie and Zarude or Uxie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Else.
I guess I never gave my number rating. I put it as an 8. So
8?
I put it as a 6.
Okay, we'll.
Oh wait, you know what I said? 6. I did say one other thing. I said, wondering how well this team enables Terrapagos because all of the pivots are fast.
That's true. I think it will be overly reliant on having like Manaphy and Uxie try to be slow and Treads. Yeah, all of the Slitherwing is the slowest pivot on the team. That's funny.
Yeah. So that was something
Yeah, let's go.
I mean, you could lead and try and get a lead sweep, but like then other than that, like you gotta bring it in on revenge or just always I don't know. Never.
All right, let's finally we can take it from the top and we can start with our first draft seed. We have Overmatt. Yeah, I guess I'll say my piece on this first. I think it's probably just one of the better drafts of the division, maybe better drafts of the league.
Century.
Honestly. Of the century.
Yeah.
I think the team has all the stats you could possibly want. Not even looking at Sylvally, that just has the flexibility and like the type and stat flexibility. Team. Yeah, you have 2 of the highest defense mons, 2 of the highest special defense mons, 2 extremely high special attack mons, 2 extremely high physical attack mons. Like for every role you can, or not role, but like for every role thing that you can think that you might want to do in Pokemon, there's like 2 things that do that role. Maybe there's no grounded poison, okay, and there's not 2 of those. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things going, and I think it plays well into the way that Matt wants to play, which is just kind of have good defensive stats, invest in offense and bulk, and trade with you.
Mm-hmm.
So having like max special attack Sylveon switch into a special attacker and hit you with a Specs Hyper Voice, dealing more damage to you than you dealt to him, right? That's how he plays, right? That's his MO.
Yeah.
And I think having Tusk, having Mega Aggron, having Slowking, having Sylveon, even Chandelure to some extent being Terra, I think that's exactly what Matt wants in a team.
Yeah.
So I gave this team a 9 out of 10. This is probably my favorite of the division.
I said 9 out of 10 as well. I didn't write a whole lot for it. I just said Tusk and Moon, obviously just a really strong combo to have. And then I said that there are good Terra Caps. Like this is maximizing the point values for Terra Caps. And normally you might think like maybe it's a little limited with both Terra Caps being special, but I also think that it doesn't matter when you have these 2 as your physical attackers. You don't need that extra like Terra branching out your physical capabilities when these are your physical attackers. So,
yeah, true. Very true.
Not to mention that they're like not allowed to Terra. Like who else would you do besides special attackers on this team? So I think that ends up being fine. But yeah.
What you think?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add that hasn't already been said. I just said this is definitely the definition of an Overmatt team. It's got
exactly.
bulky attackers, slow pivots, a great cleric, and Magron is kind of his thing right now.
Yeah.
So I imagine this won't be the last time we see him draft that Pokemon either.
Yep.
And yeah, I have this as an 8.5, but it's going to be played like a 10 out of 10 because this is a team that he's comfortable with and he will be playing optimally.
Yep, that's very fair. I think one other negative of the team is it's actually really slow. And I know that Matt likes to do that, and he likes to have Trick Room as a splash, and you can definitely do that with Slowking and Aggron. But the fastest mon outside of Moon is Thundy T, and I'm not counting Liepard because I know for a fact he's never bringing that mon.
Yeah.
So it's very, very slow.
Revival Blessing? Come on.
It's very slow, and
he doesn't even get it. It needs assist.
No.
Yeah.
And I know that Tusk is fine clicking spin, but it has to click spin. Right? The only removers are Tusk, Thundy, and Silvally. I think it's such a huge loss running defog Silvally. Whereas on Tusk, it's like you bring it and you run spin just because you threaten so many things out. Kind of like what I was saying about rocks on Nidoking. Right? Like you get to click rock so many times because you threaten what's in front of you so often. It's the same with Tusk. The thing in front of you can't touch you a lot of the time, so you have a free spin as you force them out. So it's going to be fine, but I think ideally Tusk wants to have that 4th move slot sometimes. It's not a Terra Captain, and I think if it was Terra, it would be much worse than it is. Because then it would be like, okay, it has to Terra and it has to spin.
Yeah.
But Terra Thundy is very, very strong, as we've talked about on the channel in extent in I don't know a lot before.
Yeah.
Time's up. Yeah, that's okay. What do you think, Toady, about
I already
what I said?
What I said.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I mean, I do think Tusk is the lowest opportunity cost only spinner you can have, but
yeah.
But
I think Matt is gonna not run Sylveon that often. I think it'll be Silvally over Sylveon most of the time, and say my Mega Aggron is my Dragon check.
That's fair.
Or my AV Slowking is my Draco check kind of thing, which is something that you can just do when you have Mega Aggron Slowking. Although the Witch Passing is really nice for Tusk and Aggron. I don't know. We'll see. I think one of Sylveon or Chandelure are probably going to get traded in by the end of the season.
Interesting.
Next.
Yep. On to we did.
I got it.
Bunhara. Cool. We did Max. Yep. On to Ginsuzu. Sry10. I'm not going to concede that I think it's Sry10, not Sorry 10.
I say Sorry 10. That's how I read it. Okay, here's what I said, and you might
All
disagree,
right.
but this
We
is
got
another one where I just looked at it and said, "Hey, I like Greninja and Heatran," so it's a 9 out of 10.
Okay. Anyway, Lee.
It's a
Are we gonna let
different
Tony
Terra
go,
Thundi.
or is he losing his privilege?
It's okay. He's saying things. Terra Thundi. Okay.
It's a different one though.
Okay, a different Terra Thundi. It's not the same Terra Thundi that Matt has?
No, they can't.
Oh,
They
okay.
can't both have it. You silly.
I'm interested. How many Thunderuses out of the 6 that were drafted? I'm pretty sure all 6 were drafted over the 3 divisions. How many Thundis are Terra Captains? Over or under 4.5? What do you think?
Over.
I think we're at, I think it's 5, but that's just off the top of my head from when I was looking at the rosters for this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm checking it out.
The only other
DJ Barara in chat says it's Def 310, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. The only other thing that I said was I think it has good like anti-fairy protection for Chomp and who's the other one?
Red
and Greninja, yeah, and even
Okay, so
Yanchao, technically. But.
So to answer the question, I've looked it up. In Swarm, Thundi Incarnate was not drafted.
Oh.
Thundi Therian is on Afonso's Rain team, and it's not a Terra Captain. Our Chaladon is the Terra Captain.
Right.
But in Truant, both Thundurus are Terra Captains, and in Hustle, both are Terra Captains. So it was actually under 4.5.
Yeah, but that was also under the assumption that all 6 were drafted.
Well, you know what happens when you assume.
Sometimes you're right.
You presented it. You presented the odds as
I did say I think.
Anyways.
I covered my bases, okay?
Nah, I'm suing.
Well, good luck.
Okay.
Talk to my lawyer. Lee, help.
I really like this team. I think this team's cool. I think looking at the spread of Mons, I think these are my favorite like collection of Mons that were drafted. I think every single one is sweet. Every single one looks real. And I want to see Mega Kangaskhan pop off. And I hope this is the team that can do it. I think there's a lot of hazards, a lot of pivots, a lot of immediate threats, as well as longevity between Wish Passing and then just like actual just balls of defensive stats with Garchomp and Heatran.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is one of the better speed layering that we've seen in the division so far as well. And I will say that similar to, I forget what Garchomp team it was. Maybe who has Garchomp and Swarm?
That would be Metro Shot.
Metro, right? Is that where there's multiple Mons around Garchomp speed with the Enamorus and stuff? I think it is, right?
So, no.
Maybe that's lethal. Maybe that's lethal influence. Regardless, what I liked about one of the other Garchomp teams were that there were other Mons with like similar speed to Garchomp that made it so that Chomp didn't need to always be the max speed thing, outspeeding the base 100s and the base 95s, etc. It's nice when it can like do that, but it's also very nice that it doesn't have to always be jolly. Because you have like Mian Shao, you have Mega Kang, right? You have Thundi that can outspeed the 100s for you and leave you to a bulkier Garchomp, like a helmet, a Fizdef helmet Chomp, or like just a hazard lead Chomp kind of thing. Yeah, I really like that. Specifically for Chomp, because it really enjoys the flexibility of not having to be the offensive check to things and flexing around. And I think that's how you get 20 points of value out of Garchomp. So I think this team gets a lot of value out of Chomp here. It has one of the best ice resists in the game for Chomp. I do think that Garchomp Heatran is a little bit... Oh, it's also a fairy resist, which is great. I think it's a little bit... like having double 4x weakness in that core is pretty tough. And the only other Mon to really support that, I guess, is Florges. And on the odd time the Mega Kang comes, which I'm with you, Lee. I really want Mega Kang to pop off. Who was it that drafted Mega Kang before in Hustle? Was it...
We saw somebody.
I think it was DJ...
another late draft, too, I think.
Maybe it was DJ Barara who had it. Maybe it was Siderius. I don't remember.
Hustle, so we wouldn't have... Oh, you mean last season?
No, in Hustle in a previous season.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I don't remember a previous season then.
Yeah, we have seen Mega Kang before, and I think maybe Corey drafted it. I don't remember, but I don't think it really got the opportunity to shine. So I'm really looking forward to this, seeing how Mega Kang pops. There's a lot of setup opportunity here where Garchomp, Greninja, Thundurus, Revavroom, Mienshao, Dhelmise, Florges, they all have really good setup opportunities. Even if you want to count Power Up Punch Mega Kang, you can.
I do want to count that actually because
Okay, we're gonna count that. So there's what did I say? 6 setup options there. The only ones that can't set up are what Heatran. Dhelmise can SD, I think, but I don't think that's gonna be amazing. Get him with the does Dhelmise have Trailblaze? I know
No,
it has
it's not
Rapid
in
Spin.
Gen. It's not in Gen 9.
True. So the SD Rapid Spin Dhelmise is gonna pop off. I've seen Gensuzu use Mienshao before in, I believe in DN, and just used SD, and one, or maybe it was in a previous NBA season, just used SD, like Life Orb SD all the time, and it kind of just like did really well. So I think this is another comfort pick for Gensuzu. That is another thing I'm excited to see him use, and Terra Revavroom. I think he's used that a few times before.
He used that in
that's
the Nick PL.
I think that's the Overmatt influence.
Yeah.
But honestly, I like the team. I have it at 8 out of 10. It's definitely one of the top half for me.
Yeah, I have it as 9.5. I think it's the highest one I have.
Wow, nice. Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's a really good Garchomp team specifically. I think there's a lot of offensive flexibility.
Terrain, though.
Missing grassy terrain for the Garchomp, yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, we're out of time. You ready to move on?
True. Yeah, let's hit it. Good draft.
Good draft. GG.
On to Zap now.
Zap.
What do you think?
What do I think? What did I say? I said 8
Actually,
out of
sorry,
10.
before we get into what the team is,
Cool.
let's talk about what the team used to be. There was a really big trade that Zap made when I think somebody dropped Araquanid and or Scizor. The team used to have Vaporeon, Galvantula, Mega Banette, and Joltik.
Oh.
Joltik is whatever, a non-mon.
Galvantula and Joltik.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a Corsola Galar and a Corsola team in Truant.
True.
And so he dropped those for Scizor and Araquanid, and also Magmar. But I think this team got like 200% better after Grace trades.
Magmar got Helping Hand, which is a pretty big buff.
Nobody cares.
Singles.
Did it just get that this gen? I thought it already had that.
It had Follow Me before, which is why.
Oh yeah, that was the main draw.
But yeah, the main draw. That's what it does. It redirects everything to it.
Yeah.
What did I say? I actually said 8 out of 19, but that makes it sound bad. I meant to do 8 out of 10. So I said it looks like a well-budgeted team. And then I said that I would like to see better. You know, here's another one where I just didn't look at the Terra Captain. I said I would like to see better better fairy answers for Como specifically, like to help protect it. Besides Scizor, but Jiraiya's there, so I guess that's fine. But but I was thinking specifically because like Scizor beats fairies, but also fairies have Gen 1 move pools with fire coverage that, you know, if you play one turn wrong, you might just lose that Scizor, you know, and then otherwise.
Yeah, I think Jirachi does help that for sure.
Yeah, otherwise, besides Jirachi, because I didn't notice the Jirachi. Besides Jirachi, though, it doesn't have any fairy resist, right? Besides Scizor and Jirachi, which are both steel types that are weak to fire.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
besides the fairy resist, there's no fairy resists.
Well, I'm saying there's no like poison type, and there's no.
I mean, there's Magmar.
Yeah, what the heck? What are you talking about?
True.
You got Helping Hand, dude.
That's true. With Helping Hand, that'll help answer the fairies. Good point. All right.
Yeah.
It's now at 19 out of 19.
Oh, perfect. Oops, 19 out of 29. Oh, what have I done? I think if kind of the elephant in the room looking at the team is the first 2 draft picks were Darm Galar and Mega Arrow, both of which notoriously hate Stealth Rocks. And the removal is Scizor and
we have
Magic Bounce. So I do think that's okay, or Mega Arrow can also defog. I think that's a big negative. You can run Boots Darm G, but I feel like that's kind of troll. Maybe you run that on a Zen mode Darm. And I do think that Zap is the kind of guy that has the balls to just run Zen mode like more times than not, honestly. And
Unique
yeah, as
typing.
Polito was saying in chat, I think the speed chasm between Mega Arrow and Jirachi?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's abysmal. That's worse than Max's 143 to
106.
105/6. That it's real bad. So I expect we're gonna be probably seeing like Dragon Dance Komo a lot of the time, and Scarf Jirachi, Scarf Darmg a lot of the time as well. Obviously, there's a Shell Smash Dreadnought and Bullet Punch Scissor, so there are ways to make up for the lack of speed, but they all require either
Also
like
webs.
setup for Scissor or just setup in general, or like a
Yeah.
choice band on Scissor to really be that noticeable.
I feel like every turtle should have rapid spin. Why doesn't
Yeah.
Dreadnought have rapid spin?
Is that your season 5 team, Turtle team?
No, but I like.
What
Dreadnought.
how do you rate turtles? If monkeys are a 10 out of 10, and like
I would say so. Like in normally,
French
like,
are a 0 out of 10, where do you rank turtles?
I wouldn't. They're not like one of my favorite animals, but also like I would make a turtle team in Pokemon specifically because I like a lot of the turtle Pokemon that are in Pokemon.
Is it like you would make a turtle team in game, or you would draft a turtle team?
I probably wouldn't draft one, but I would
Is
like.
Como a turtle?
No, it's like a dinosaur. I guess it's like
Okay.
kind of close. But I'm
True.
just
What about
specifically, 'cause
reptile
I have
team?
done playthroughs where like I have turtles on them a lot. Like I had
Yeah.
Dreadnought in Gen 8. I guess I didn't have Torterra in Gen 4, but I do like the Torterra line. It's one of my favorite starters. It's just that it competes with Infernape.
They didn't have Torterra in Gen 4?
I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm saying,
because you
like,
picked
I
the
always
monkey.
choose Infernape, yeah. So like I've
Oh.
never done a Gen 4 run with Torterra.
Sucks to suck.
Even though
Dude,
I like Torterra.
How can you be like a 12-year-old kid loading up Diamond and Pearl for the first time and not pick Turtwig?
Because
I don't understand.
I wanted the monkey. Like as
I
soon
don't
as I thought there was a
understand.
monkey
It doesn't
starter,
make sense
I
to
knew
me.
that that's what I wanted.
Anyway, sorry, back to the team. Yeah, I kind of can't get over the massive speed chasm, the literal 50 speed chasm. Imagine it was the other way around, and the fastest mon was 100, compared to the rest of the team that capped out at 50. That's a really big difference. It is the
I mean, you
same
can
kind
run
of
like
thing where
Scarf Hatterene.
True. Scarf the 20. What is it? Space speed 29.
29.
Great. Fennec, you don't pick Piplup. Actually, that's incorrect.
I like all three of the the Gen 4 starters. I think is my favorite combination of that. Like I would do a game, like I would do a playthrough with all three of them, but every time I just have to choose Chimchar.
So back to the team, I do think that there are options for speed control where there is a Weber and there is Trick Room, and I do think that despite 100 basically being the next fastest speed in Jirachi,
which if you're
despite
running
that
it
being fairly
defensively
low,
for
I do
fairies,
think the team actually still uses webs fairly decently. I think having like a belly drum Komodo or a banded Darmg, or even some sort of offensive Araquanid, as well as stopping opposing Scarves from outspeeding Shell Smash Dreadnought. I do think there like is benefit to having the webs, but I don't think there's that great of an option for Trick Room, and you would never run both. I think Hatterene is kind of the only one that would actually want to use a Trick Room, and Araquanid in some cases too.
could you imagine banded
but
Jirachi
it feels
instead
like
of
this.
Scarf Jirachi, but just
Do
like
it.
with the webs up?
Banded Terra Steel.
Yeah.
But it does feel like the team just feels outdated. You know, there's a Sinistcha there, but it feels like
give it the times, old man.
It's a Gen 7 team with it's a Gen 8 team, I guess, with Hatterene and Dreadnought. That's my take.
And Garm.
True.
There's
I also
like
think
3
that
Gen 8
even though there's double steel, the fire support for it with like Komo and Araquanid is fine, and also heat proof Sinistcha, I guess. But the like ghost and dark switch for Jirachi is also non-existent. There's no resists. I guess you're relying on bulletproof Komo to take Shadow Ball and Dark Pulse. But I don't think Zap is going to want to run Komo in that capacity. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's what I've wanted to say for it. I do think the team is like a 6.5, but it's also another mon that or another team that I'm like, Zap is piloting it. I'm sure it'll be fine. I just hope he's not as much of an old man as this team makes him look.
Lee, did you say anything yet? Because we're out of time, but I know we stalled for a little bit with non-team related talk.
Yeah, the only things for me is that I have it as a 7 plus the zap difference. And that's about it for me. I would have liked to see Terra Sinistra just because I'm addicted to that Pokemon.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. And I don't think you're Terraing Jirachi too much unless the like it was said earlier that the ghost weakness looks a little too bad. But I don't think you're Terraing Jirachi too much, or you're pressured to Terra Jirachi too much, and that's all I have to say.
I just realized there's no ground type. All right, I'm dropping this. 5.
No ground type with 2 water types, but I guess Araquanid's not weak to.
Yeah, 2 water types and Mega Arrow.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that, not gonna lie. Alrighty, let's move on
ground
to...
Dreadnought is actually pretty good, though.
That's true. Move on to
Pollitoshark.
Out of the gates with the Coco Moth Mega Chomp. We have seen that top 3 drafted before. I believe Chris Reed had that top 3 with, maybe it was with Prim over Keldeo. But I think that's a great way to start a draft, honestly. I really think the team appreciates having a second fairy, so the Coco doesn't have to be the only one. So Terra Diancie is a really good captain to pair with Moth, which Terra Moth is obviously fantastic and one of the better offensive Terras in that are legal in the league, in my opinion.
I think that's one that's like gonna be like a borderline. Like, should we have Terra ban this?
Yeah, it's on the watch list for sure. Raichu Alola is kind of free real estate with Coco. It's so good, and it's unfortunate that it's kind of had to be tiered up to the point where it is. But having it just be a low tier Terra captain that previously would have been legal with Iron Moth. Imagine if Terra Diancie was Terra Raichu Alola. It's kind of unwallable, honestly. You kind of can't do much against that in the terrain. So that's kind of why it's been bumped up a lot, just so it's less free for the people who get Coco. Because realistically, you get Coco, and then you get to decide on how hard you want to go on the electric drain. It's kind of just a good mon, right? It's almost like drafting a more fast, more offensive Zapdos. Maybe not even more offensive, but a faster, more utility-focused Zapdos that has other team synergies. And so you can decide if Raichu is even a fit for the team. And having that flexibility later in the draft, because nobody's going to pick up Raichu if they don't have Coco, right? That's like, you're not going to get Pincurchin Raichu Alola. So it's always going to be there for you at the end of the draft. Kind of similar to how rain teams can just pick up their low point Swift Swimmer, like the Ludicolo or the Dreadnought or whatever, at the end of the draft, because nobody else is going to pick them because they don't have rain. I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I said similar things about the terrain combo with the Raichu. Like I think Moth and Raichu are like perfectly good use of the electric terrain that exists. What was the other thing that I said for this one? Where are we? Oh, I said that I actually think that base Diancie is kind of slept on as a mon because it's like more defensive than Mega, and I was kind of wondering. It's like I guess as a Terra captain, it's fine. And who else are you gonna do with the Moth? But I also think that Rock Fairy typing is a more solid typing than people give it credit for as just like a defensive mon. Like you have your 4x Steel weakness, but outside of that, it's like it checks some pretty key combinations pretty well. Like this, like base Diancie just walls Chi-Yu. Just as an example of a mon that's like if you have Diancie, so suddenly the threat of like Chi-Yu coming in at any point during the game no longer matters because you have 100% of the time are able to swap to Diancie, and like maybe it'll nasty plot, but then it still has to sit in front of you clicking Diamond Storm. Like it's not going to kill you. Yep. so I think it's actually pretty valuable as a 7-point mon to kind of like win some matchups, and I'm interested to see how it does as a Terra captain as well, because I don't know, maybe shedding one of those types for some matchups to get rid of like the quad weakness or to get rid of some other weakness would be nice. Like maybe it just ends up being a mono fairy alongside Coco.
Yeah, exactly. Terra Fairy with Moonblast or Draining Kiss.
Yeah.
Really strong. Terra fighting for the stab body press.
Right.
Being a flying type to get rid of the ground weakness is really good.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot that I can do. So I'm interested to see that. That's I gave it an 8 out of 10. I think just kind of a standard. Like I like this team.
Yeah. Cool. Lee, thoughts?
I have this team at a 9 out of 10, just behind Gensuzu for my favorite on the board. I really think that the middle of this draft looks really coherent, I guess. Like the Bronzong can take hits for anything, and you're just gonna have really good hazard pressure as well on top of everything between Garchomp and Bronzong, and Diancie even to an extent can just come in, click Stealth Rock, be your Terra Cap, and exist. And just take hits and not care. And that's just gonna leave endgames for Moth or Raichu to just kind of come in, click buttons until the other team's dead, and there's not much that can be done about it at all. I don't like Unfezant and Whiscash, but
yeah, I mean whatever. There were 2 points left over. Do what you want.
I think it's Unfezant.
Unfezante. Yeah, cool. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Lee, and I similarly like the team a lot. I actually also have it at a 9 out of 10, and I think that puts it in my top 2, at least top 3, but probably top 2 in the division, probably tied with Matt. I think the team is great. I am a big sucker for Megachomp, and I do think that it just pairs decently with Coco. I will play a little bit of devil's advocate here, though, and talk about some of the weaknesses that I see. In that the ground matchup for the Coco Moth, I don't think is like the Mandy and Bronzong are there to take on earthquakes, literally, but I feel like they're also mons that can be taken advantage of. Like if a strong like nasty plot earth power user comes in to Mandy Bronzong, I don't know what that would be. Let's even just say Lando I comes in and like forces out the Iron Moth into Bronzong that eats the earth power. I don't think it actually wins the 1v1 all the time. I know that's very situational, but
I kind of disagree.
Yeah, I think relying on 2 like solely defensive mons is going to be hard. So Decidueye is going to have to come sometimes into those matchups. And I think similarly with having a Scald switch, right? Like your defensive answer for water types is going to be, again, Decidueye doesn't want to take a Scald. Keldeo is not that bulky. Your Dragon type doesn't like it. Maybe it's just going to also have to be Bronzong and Mandy. So I think there's a lot of pressure on the Bronzong Mandy to do what it does. And specifically Bronzong, I think, might get taken advantage of. Mandy is a little bit better with like taunt, foul play, faster recovery, and U-turn. But yeah, I think Bronzong could be forced in a lot of the time to take the ice, the fairy, and the ground that the top few are weak to, and to get set up on.
I think you're. I kind of disagree because I mean Terra Moth already ignores the ground weakness, and yeah, like Coco's still weak to it, but.
Well,
I don't think it's as much of a problem as you think it is. And normally my concern with a flying type like Mandy coming in on a Quake, or like even like Moltres or Talon or something, is the rock weakness that comes with so much coverage for those types. And Bronzong is kind of like a perfect combination for that, where you don't just get to bring your ground type and have it. Like, let's look at like the Dawn fans for an example, where it's like you might be running rocks, spin, and then your ground move, and then your coverage move. In some matchups where that only flying swap, or like only the flying swap can come in on the ground type move, you're just running ground and then ice, or ground and rock. You can't do that against Bronzong Mandibuzz because you have to be ready for both. And I think that's like maybe you're running knock. Okay, Mandy doesn't give a shit about knock. Like
Loses its boots.
I don't think it still resists it though. I don't think that's a huge deal.
I mean, you're not running knockoff to beat Mandibuzz. You're running knockoff so that rocks beat Mandibuzz.
No, I know. I'm saying that you still have swaps for Quake. Yeah, I don't think it's
there are literal swaps, but that's what I'm saying is those swaps I think are so defensive that they can be taken advantage of by things that can just stop them from like either taunting them or calm minding in front of them or whatever. You know, I also think that saying that Terramoth doesn't lose to Terramoth, you see what the type is ahead of time, right? Is it always running grass or flying? I don't think so.
But it's not always 4 times weak to ground.
Right. I mean, if it's a fire, like the best, in my opinion, the best Terra type for Moth is just fire, straight up just fire, and I think that grass is a close second. But I think just straight up Terra Fire is the main draw to running Moth. Now, this is getting very hypothetical because we're saying, oh, then just have a different Terra type in those matchups, and it I think gets a little wishy-washy. But
I don't see wishy-washy anywhere on this roster.
I knew that was
true. Sorry, that's Wish Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just my first thought. It could be potentially taken advantage of by mons that have ground coverage and or ice coverage, because again, Bronzong is like the switch for ice as well. Keldeo doesn't always want to be switching in. It can be put into that role because it does have like above passable defensive stats.
It'll shrug off like a non-stab ice spinner pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. I think the speed is really good. It has 2 110s and a 130. I mean, what more could you really ask for? And a 108. And both of the 110s can boost their speed in the terrain, or even without the terrain with Moth. So I think that's really good. Mega Chomp doesn't have to be 92. It can stay at 102 before it Mega evolves. I think the hazard game is strong. I think the removal there's 3 removal options. There's a lot of setup options. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 setup options. I'm not counting Whiscash. There's a lot of setup options.
More.
Most of these mons can pivot.
We need spite ups.
So if your read game is on point, you can really put people through the blender with your decent hazards, where you have 2 strong hazard setters and an Iron Moth that can T-spike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the team has a lot going for it. Honestly, the worst part about the team is that you have to limit it to 6 mons. You know, I don't think it is ever aching to run more than 6. It's never like going to have a complete hole in it where the 6th mon has to come in and then make another hole by dropping something. It's something that like it just has a lot of good mons and wishes it could bring more. You know?
Yeah, and honestly, all the discussion about like Bronzong and Mandibuzz too. It's like, how often is Bronzong coming? How good do you feel about having to bring it in some matchups?
Well, it's the only steel type.
I know, but
I think Bronzong is very bringable. I think it's like as bringable, at least as bringable as Mudsail.
But I'm saying that like it might feel bad to not bring one of those top tiers, even like if the matchup demands Bronzong. I'm not saying Bronzong is bad in those matchups or not bringable in that sense. I'm saying that you might have some ideas with some of these mons going together, but then in reality, it's like, well, you can't actually fit some of these combinations together because you need to bring Bronzong for other roles, you know, because I've had that situation before where I have like a lot of like cool offensive mons that I kind of want to pair together, but the reality is that like, well, I don't really anticipate that. I still need to make room for my defensive answers that need to come along too.
Anyway, I think we rated this pretty highly. Lee, what did you rate it again? I forget.
I rated it as a 9 as my second favorite team behind.
Right. Yeah, I had it at 9 too. And Toady, you didn't really like it as much?
No, I said 8.
Oh, 8? Okay, yeah. I think this is probably on average our highest, or maybe second highest to Overmatt. Yeah. But I think it's a really good team. I think it's a good take on Coco Chomp. And yeah, I'm excited to see how Polito pilots it. Cool. Polito, if you will.
I won't.
Okay, on a FennekMaster.
Fennec!
This has shades of Lethal Blues team, I believe. Where it has Meowscarada, Rotom Wash, but Garchomp over Lando.
Yeah. And I really like this team too.
Yeah, funny how that works.
9.
9, yeah.
I think this might be
I
my
had it a bit
favorite.
lower. I have it at 7, but I do think, or sorry, 7.5. I do think it's a good team though.
I
What
have
do
it
you
at
think
8.
makes it a? Okay, what do you guys think makes it better than what I have it as?
I just like that. I think Lando plus this Firewater Grass Core is a nice kind of little combo. Like those four together. I think you're really flexible with these three, with the Meow, Rotom, and Infernape, to kind of do a lot of different things. Like all three of them can Scarf. All three of them can like choice offense, not Scarf. You know what I mean? All three of them can not do either of those things and not choice, and do more setup, like Meow setting hazards if it wants to, like lead, Infernape rocks, Rotom doing more trick shenanigans or defensive play. I think you're going to be really flexible with these three, and that kind of opens up your breakers a little bit. So like the Melmetal can come in, the Gardevoir can come in. Like they're all just really good pivots that you kind of have to scout, and scouting allows those pivots to happen. And not just in the sense where like normally a faster pivot might be harder to bring in some of these mons because you're outspeeding the person. I think they're going to draw a lot of swaps to create like to scout them, and I think those pivots onto those swaps are going to be what brings in some of these other mons. And then even outside, and Lando's included in that as well, as a pivot. And so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for these mons to come in, even though they're a little slower. I mean, Gardevoir's not slow, but like they're not known for being super fast. And Gardevoir, of course, can't Scarf in this case. I think there's just going to be a lot of opportunities for them to come in, and I think it's just a very diverse offensive profile. Like you have like pretty much every core type in all of these dual typings, aside from Melmetal, who's just monotype, but it's Melmetal. So like,
Yeah, I think specifically like Rotom Lando plus Melmetal as the payoff is really strong, and Meowscarada as the like speedster it has all of the makings of just being a good standard team, but I also don't think it has anything that puts it above and beyond a standard team.
yeah,
Which is why I kind of gave it like just the middle of the road. It is a solid B, right? It's like
I think that's fair.
good. This is a good draft team, right? 7.5, like right smack dab in the middle. And honestly, 7.5 is in the higher end for me in the hustle division. And as a recent promotee from Swarm, I think Fennec did a really good job. Honestly, I'm impressed, and I think this team has the makings to make a pretty good playoff run. So I do think that Mega Guard is a little bit. I'm a little bit worried about that as the fairy, but Pheasantipity is there. Yeah, I think like, how do I say it? It's nice to have like a fairy with reliable, like that can be part of a backbone, and a fairy that can be part of an offensive core. Guard is good in an offensive core, but it's realistically not like fast enough, in my opinion. It's not like Enamorus is barely faster, and I think that barely can like counts as being fast enough just because it outspeeds the hundreds. But like Mega Diancie, I would count as a fast fairy, or like Coco or something like that. And then Pheasantipity doesn't quite count as a reliable fairy for me. I feel like they're both kind of middle of the road. With some like they have the same checks. They both just die to physical attackers, you know.
They're basically the same speed too.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Like 99 to 100, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the core 4 of the team between Lando, Rotom, Meow, and Melmetal are going to be coming almost every game, and I think they're amazing. They're very like standard. I do think it's unfortunate that Lando is going to have to be rocking a lot of the time, because Infernape rarely has the opportunity to run it, and the Dunsparce I think isn't going to be coming to a lot of games. So if you want to run rocks, you do have a couple options, but I think Lando is going to be the most consistent one that you're bringing to most games. But Terra Lando here,
the worst thing though.
Yeah, Terra Lando here. Sorry, what's up?
Oh, it is Terra.
Is actually I like it better here than I liked it on the other team that had Terra Lando. I forget who had it.
I forget too.
Yeah, but yeah, it looks like a good team, and I don't have too much else to comment on it. I do wish there was a little bit more. I wish Infernape was maybe a 110, just to meet that threshold.
Yeah.
Outside of Meow, it just seems a little slow. But all things considered, yeah, I like the team a lot. And I'm gonna get some water because my throat is real dry. One sec.
Lee, do you got anything?
I gotta start talking before Naheima. It's hard to
Yeah.
follow him up. He goes so
You
much
got
more
30
depth than me on
seconds.
these. No, I just have that I just have nothing else to add on the great pivot core between Lando, Meow, Rotom, and Fernape, and to an extent Fezandipity as well can be running like U-turn Toxic Chain to get a lot of chip off that it wouldn't otherwise get, while running like bulky sets that can take those hits. I think Rotom Wash and Fezandipity are really good together, I guess.
Yeah, true, actually.
In that they just kind of watch each other's back really well and like can bounce back and forth between each other, and then Rotom's gonna be your primary hazard removal, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So getting it in safely off of Fez, even if that just means Fez is slower than a 100 and gets a slower pivot off so that Rotom can come in safely on something, it would look pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm kind of notorious for undervaluing Fezandipity.
I think a lot of people do. We haven't seen it enough to really know for sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen it really like wow me more than what I think an 11 pointer should. Even like maybe a 12 to 10 pointer should. So I'm still waiting for that time. I don't know. I'm kind of just hoping that this is the time, you know?
Yeah.
I do think the hazard removal is not great when I think. Wait, so is Rotom Lando? I forget. Does Fez have Fog?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So I mean, Rotom is kind of relegated to defog role every game.
Does
so I do think it'll be running
defog?
I don't think so.
I wasn't sure. It seems like
it might. I'm not sure.
That
actually, Altaria has it, and Chimecho. You never bring Chimecho, but
no. Altaria.
Having Terra Altaria, I think, is actually going to come more often than Fez.
Altaria.
Altaria. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're out of time. So
yeah, okay. Without Altaria coming to be a defogger, and even a defogger as a Terra captain, I think is kind of a waste of resources. Rotom is not going to be running Plot all the time, or very often. It's not going to be running Scarf very often. A lot of the sets that make it more reliable or more resistant to wear, like it's hard to try and run like defog Pain Split, for example, because then you're missing your status or whatever, etc. I'm not going to talk too much more in depth about it. Okay, true.
We've been well past time. I'm trying to wrap that up.
I think we've been pretty good so far today.
No, just that specific time. Like when Lee started, we had 30 seconds left, and then we just kept going. Like we started another conversation about the team. That's what I was trying to avoid.
Yeah, it's all good. What do we got?
We got Jortsin.
Okay. Let me take a look here. I have misplaced my dock. Here it is.
Lee, do you
this team is really weird. This team is really weird, and I don't really know how to rate it. It's like Core of Claude is a decent backbone. I feel like Claude is too passive for what the team is trying to do. It has double poison, and I feel like there's a lot of overlap between Claude and Glamora.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that too.
It is nice that like Glamora doesn't have to do what Claude does. Not that it actually does what Claude does, but it doesn't have to be like just the bulky poison type hazard setter because it's a Terra captain. And I think it got Meteor Beam recently, right? Through DLC.
Yeah.
So having Terra Glamora is actually pretty good. I like it a lot as a captain. I just am not personally a fan of it with Clodsire and without having a spinner, right? Your remover is it's only Corviknight is the only removal on the team.
Mortal Spin.
Okay, sorry, it does have Mortal Spin. That's true. That is true. I always forget about that move.
Yeah. And does Vikable have defog?
No. So I do like the hazard stacking, by the way, now that you bring up Vikavolt. The Sun Splash is fine. I think
it's
Sun
weird
Splash is a lot harder to it's a lot harder to pull off Sun Splash than it is sand or snow,
Yeah.
or even rain to that extent. Because I think Ninetales and Torkoal have a lot of overlap with like a lot of things that just want to use the sun in the first place, as
Yeah.
opposed to like T-Tar or Pelipper. That, I mean, being a flying type just makes it completely different from almost any other water type.
Yeah.
Like Swampert, for example, Megapert. Gouging Fire in Sun, though, is going to be insane. And I can foresee something like Ninetales coming in, clicking a screen, and just hard switching into Gouging Fire to just smack something.
Yeah.
And then later in the game, Ninetales coming in and Healing Wishing into Gouging Fire and smacking something again, right?
I just think that, yeah, like it's impossible to underrate just the fact that you can put Gouging Fire in Sun with this team.
Yep.
But I also think that, like, in any case where that doesn't work super reliably, it's, you don't want Corviknight being your only ground swap on a team with some ground weaknesses in Sun. Like, it's, I feel like Corviknight is gonna get chipped down by a lot of things more than it might normally do based on like building to survive something when you're sitting in Sun and taking extra fire hits or extra fire damage. And that's, I don't know, it's like, I mean, when Mega Sharpedo and Gouging Fire, who is already playing such a critical role on the team, having Mega Sharpedo kind of as your only fire swap. I mean, Glamora, I guess.
Yeah, Sharpedo is the only water type, is tough.
Yeah.
And having it specifically be an offensive water type means that in the Sun, its water moves are just weaker. And it doesn't,
Yeah.
it is one of the few water types that doesn't rely on using its water stabs at all, right? It's just using its strong jaw as stab, basically. So it's really not the end of the world for Sharpedo.
Yeah. And not that you have to bring Sun either. It's like it can still definitely just do.
But like your own
matchup.
fire resist is Glamora, which is your Terra Captain, right?
Yeah.
And Gouging Fire, which is the backbone of your offense.
Which,
like,
let's not underrate Valiant too much too. I feel like a lot of times we like kind of like glance past Valiant too. It's not like Gouging Fire is the only thing carrying the offense on this team, because Valiant obviously could do a lot of stuff too.
I feel like Valiant and Mega Sharpedo just feel like they do the same thing though, you know, where they have a one-time speed boost. They try and do their thing before it's gone. I mean, you can't run Booster Valiant here actually, so maybe it's not quite the same. But just in general.
Yeah. I also think like just on the point of weather too, like when you're splashing something, I feel like if you were going to splash Sun on a team, you're better off doing it with like a chlorophyll user that doesn't have that overlap. Or no, I know. I'm saying that like instead of like Gouging Fire being like the key piece of the Sun splash.
Oh, I see.
Like having a lot of overlap, because yeah, it's true. With Sun, it's like the only setters besides Koraidon are all also, well, and Koraidon besides legendaries are also fire types. Whereas
maybe
like you said with like
Lilligant...
Pelipper, it has like at least a different secondary typing that makes it unique. And then with a lot of the there's so many options that for sand, so many. I mean, there's ground and rock.
Yeah, exactly. I would have maybe liked to have seen a Venusaur here.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Over the Lilligant
of a mon that would use that a little better as a splash.
Yeah, and I think it's also just a better mon than Lilligant at like everything.
Yeah,
outside of Sun.
I don't know if Wake is drafted, but Wake would almost maybe even be better than Valiant on this team.
Or better than Sharpedo.
Well, yeah, I mean, assuming you'd also replace Sharpedo, but I'm saying like as the water type to put on this team, but you're not gonna. It's not an even swap with Sharpedo, so I'm thinking like if we're maybe swapping at the high tiers, put that in place of Valiant.
Poison at this point as well.
Yeah, so you'd also have to drop probably one.
If you get Venusaur, yeah. But I think you could do that either way.
I think making it a Terra Captain would be good, but I do think that's committing way too much to Sun then, and you'd have to change your Terra from Ninetales to something else.
I think that's fine though. I think if you're keeping the Gouging Fire and you're adding Wake and adding Venusaur, then you are kind of just making a Sun team. Like it's no longer.
And I think Sun is just the weakest of all of the weathers. I think hands down, Sun is not that great compared to the others.
I don't think that's true and maybe in draft. I don't think that's true generally.
Yeah, of course in draft.
Yeah,
that's the context.
Yeah.
Well,
I think Sun in draft is the worst out of all four.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought you were just saying Sun's just the worst weather. I was like, I don't know how you can say that when photosynthesis is a thing now. But,
no, Sun has gotten a glow up in the most recent gen just through photosynthesis.
Yeah.
But it's just like I don't know. Do we think eventually other terrains and weathers will get something similar to what these guys got? Like, do we think Psychic Terrain is going to have some like weird future ability?
I think the difference is that
similar?
The difference is that Psychic Terrain and Grassy Terrain, specifically Grassy Terrain with Rillaboom, already have extremely good representation in VGC, so they don't need to buff it. Like what was Electric Terrain doing in VGC? What was Sun doing in VGC besides Specs Torkoal, like Eruption? Like
blocking spores is what Electric Terrain was doing.
I guess that's true, yeah. But it's not like, you know, that's one thing. Like, you can do safety goggles if you want to block spore on a specific one, or just burn grass type. Because that was another buff that happened recently too, was grass types being immune to powders.
I think that was Gen 6, wasn't it? That was a long time ago.
No, I thought it was Gen 7 or 8. I thought it was like pretty check. Or maybe no, they've been immune to like to I think like sleep powder and stuff and spore, but like rage
starting
powder,
in Gen 6 grass type are immune to powder moves.
Is that including rage powder? Okay, so maybe it was Gen 6. Okay, well, either way, that got buffed already to deal with that, and I feel like Electric Terrain was already kind of the one that was left out of VGC currently. Not to mention that it wasn't a good Electric Terrain setter besides Coco and Miraidon, who Coco isn't in Gen 9 and Miraidon is not legal until next month. But Psychic Terrain has size spam. I don't think Psychic Terrain's getting anything else. Like, it's already one of the best terrains. Grassy Terrain. Yeah, I don't think it's going to get a special thing. It has Rillaboom and it has the ground, like defense. Like, Grassy Terrain's already just so good for a lot of teams.
I think we know what the terrains. I think we've been yapping about terrains for a little while. That wasn't my intention. Sorry.
Misty Terrain though, maybe that'll get a buff. Maybe we'll see a Misty Terrain.
Yeah. I think like, it's so hard for me to rate this team because it's like I can't say that it's really dedicated to Sun. I can't say it's really dedicated to like Corv Claude being fat enough to take on teams. It just feels like a gouging fire team.
Yeah,
you know.
I agree.
So because of that, I think I want to rate it kind of lowly. I think I'll give it like a 6, maybe a 5.5. I'm not a huge fan, honestly, for myself. I don't know, Lee, what you think about.
I had 6.
Yeah.
I had 7.5, but I think you've talked me down. I think the downfalls, and also just getting your Sun up safely in a way that makes sense, and then getting your Sun payoff in looks almost impossible.
Yeah. Like, DJ Burrow does bring up a good point of Ninetales getting Baton Pass, which is very nice.
But it's still fast.
Yeah, it's only 100, right? It's not that quick.
It's not a slow Baton Passer though.
No, but like being fast is fine. You can set a screen and then just fast Baton Pass. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, let's move on. We've already talked about Alice. Yep. It's on to omnomnomnomnomnomnomnom.
We don't really have to talk about Monkey Boy.
Oh, okay. This is Monkey Boy.
I think last time we literally just skipped him because it was at the end of the 6-hour stream. We're not talking about Monkey Boy.
Based. This has shades of Tilted Tony's team that we talked about in Truant. Specifically, like Darkrai plus Bulky Psychic type plus Terra Quavel.
Yeah,
true. And I really like that core.
Yeah, I really do like that like fighting Psychic Dark core. It's very flexible.
I like Quavel and Shocks together.
Yeah, Quavel Shocks, true.
Because you have your hazards from Shocks and spin.
Yep, good spin. Quack. Plus good hazard setter. 2 good hazard setters with, if you want to count Mew. I don't count Mega Dancy as a good hazard setter, even though it does get 2 hazards.
It's a good rock setter.
I do think so just looking at the draft order, it was Darkrai, Mew, Quavel, Sandy Shocks, Crobat, Diancie.
Oh, Diancie was late.
After that, I don't like the team. I don't like that Capraja is the steal. I've never seen Terra Snorlax or even just Snorlax in general do very much work, but I am interested in it.
Have you seen it before? Like, have you actually seen it and seen it not do well?
Seen Terra Snorlax? I haven't seen Terra Snorlax, no, but I have seen base Snorlax not be amazing.
Yeah. I'm just curious if you've seen it, because I'm also curious about Terra Snorlax. I think it could be sick, because you can do thick fat sets, or you can do I guess you could do belly drum. I mean, you could there's stuff you could do with it. I've seen Snorlax do some nasty stuff. I don't know how recently I've seen it do neat stuff, so it's hard to say. But I also thought one thing that I noticed with the team, it's like Terra Quack is great. But you also, if you wanted to mix it up a little bit, could try, if the Snorlax and Quack isn't working out, you could do Shocks Crobat. That would be a Terra combo that I think could be interesting. Maybe not the best,
True.
but like, because I think Terra Shocks is I actually think Terra Shocks is one of the best Terra captains in the game.
I agree. I really like Terra Shocks.
And Crobat, I not really an opinion on it, but also like, how bad could it be, right? Like, if you're
Yeah,
trying
I've
to
never
get a
seen or really considered Terra Crobat. I don't
Yeah.
think it would be that good. I
Yeah.
feel like the main draw of drafting Crobat is for its
The unique
speed and
typing.
for its typing.
Yeah.
You know, I actually think Poison Flying is very good on it. It's
Yeah.
like a 4 times resist to fighting and a ground
But
immune.
maybe-
That's kind
maybe
of
you
what
give
you
it-
draft it for.
I don't know if it has fighting coverage normally, but maybe you give it Terra Fighting to get through the steals that wall it.
True. Maybe you just fire to make your heat wave better.
Yeah. I guess it has Heat Wave for that, yeah. But either way.
Yeah. I like Crobat a lot personally, and I think it's been a little while since it's had the spotlight. So I'm excited to see
It's on a
Monkey Boy
couple
with
teams,
it.
isn't
I
it?
also think it's nice to have something faster than Darkrai, right?
Yeah.
Darkrai will always be fast enough to beat what it needs to beat anyways. So it's not like Garchomp where having something slightly faster than it lets it run bulky. I don't think Darkrai will ever be bulky. It'll just run the max bulk that it can to make sure that it outspeeds the next fastest mon. But yeah, I like the speed tiers, having a 110, 125, a 130, whatever Sandy Shocks is. I forget, 101.
101. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the speed layering is very strong. And then having Mew is actually the recipient of not having to be fast here, right? Where
Yeah.
Quaquaval forces things to invest in speed between like 90 to 100 or 90 to like 95. Mew forces things to run speed from 100 and doesn't need to have speed in itself because you have 4 things that outspeed the base hundreds other than Mew, right? So it can be bulky a lot of the time, run like a bold calm mindset or the cosmic power or stored power set, or even just fat plot or fat dragon dance and just get off multiple dragon dances because you're so bulky. Yeah, I think Mew is in a really, really good spot here.
Yeah.
This is one of the better Mew rosters that I think I've seen for a little while. And there's a lot of prep that Darkrai, Quack, Shocks, and Diancie are pulling that the opponent has to respect. That Mew is such a wild card that I don't think you can even consider Mew.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you have something like a taunt user that makes it so you don't just lose to Demon Mew. But otherwise, you're kind of just hands up in the air saying, well, I hope Mew doesn't sweep me because I have to prep for these other 4 mons that are going to sweep me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I just noticed, and this doesn't really matter a whole lot when you consider like the coverage that Mew has, but a lot of these mons are monotype.
True.
Which is like kind of inherently a disadvantage, but it's like they're good monotype mons. Like the top 2 are good monotype mons, but they are still monotype mons.
That's true.
Your steel type is just steel type.
Yeah,
your Terra
I think
Captain's
that
already monotype.
I think the Caparajah and Snorlax that affects more. I think Darkrai and Mew.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's like a
that
huge
much.
downside or anything.
Yeah. If anything, Darkrai kind of wishes that it was like poison type, just so it has stab on Sludge Bomb.
Yeah.
Like as well as
speaking of poison, one thing that I just thought of while we were talking about Crobat before, and something that actually ends up still being a problem on this team. I think a lot of the time that, you know, being the only poison flying type that people pass over Crobat is because sometimes when you're looking for that like mid to low tier poison type, it's because you need a grounded poison type at that point in the draft, and it's not one, and he doesn't have one. So
I don't think that's a big deal.
not a major problem, but it is worth noting that like I think the reason that some people are deterred from choosing Crobat as that poison type that they take kind of like middle of the draft is because of that type combination, and he happens to also not like it ended up being technically a blind spot on his team.
Yeah, I mean, I think people put too much value on having a grounded poison. I'm gonna be honest. I think having poison type just as a defensive answer to a couple important types is really nice. Like beating fighting types handedly with Brave Bird and fairy types easily with like Sludge Bomb or Cross Poison is pretty much the main draw, as well as its speed, U-turn, taunt, and like immunity to ground specifically, right? Like no other poison types really do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah,
like
true.
you're not drafting this as a poison type per se. You're drafting it as something that does the things that poison types do, but is immune to a weakness that poison types have, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Or and also a flying type that isn't bulky but is still a fighting answer because you have the quad resist.
Yeah, it's kind of, it has shades of Talonflame where it is a little bit fake sometimes, but I do think it's um, because it's just faster than Talonflame, it can invest more into bulk.
Yeah.
Just doesn't have flame body. Lee, any thoughts on the team?
I really like the Terra captains here.
Yep, true.
As a Terra you and I are both Terra Quack enjoyers from
Oh
last
yeah, brother.
season.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're missing too much on Sandy Shocks because it's your ground type.
Yep, true.
So I don't think missing out on Terra Sandy Shocks is too big of a downside for that. What do I have here? Yeah, I just said I really like the natural bulk of the mons that you're going to be bringing between Mew and Snorlax a lot.
And
I think
Shocks.
those two.
Shocks has a lot of natural. Actually, not as
Oh.
much as I thought. Looking at the stats, I feel like every time that I play Shocks though, like it
just be living hits.
I think it's because honestly, it's probably just because of the typing. It's a really good defensive typing.
Yeah, it's very carried by its typing, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, there's
yeah,
I think there's a lot. Like I mentioned, there's a big drop off for me, kind of after Crobat.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not a big believer in those mons. Like Gourgeist, I don't know. I see Gourgeist do things sometimes, and I'm like, what an idiot losing to Gourgeist, right? But then like maybe it is actually pretty decent. I'm not sure. I think I undervalue it. I think I undervalue Caparajah. So maybe that's totally a personal thing. Despite that, I have it at a 7.5, and I think I kind of lowballed. I think it could very easily be higher if it wasn't for my personal bias against a couple of the lower end ones.
Yeah,
I have an 8 with a point by the brackets. So
yeah, I think cheaping out on the steel just doesn't fit, doesn't sit well with me. And having your ground switches be Crobat, Gourgeist feels a little rough. But I love the offense that the team brings. I love the flexibility that Mew has. Like I said, one of the better Mew teams we've seen for a while. And I think it's also a really good fit for Darkrai too.
Cool. All right, let's move on. So skip
Alrighty.
Zeb. We already got Zeb.
We did Zeb.
And this is Trace, right?
Yes, sennarin or Trace. I imagine they're not tuning in. So talk all the shit you want now.
I said
it is what, like
6
8 a.m. for them?
Maybe. I don't
6?
know.
Okay.
I said 6 out of 10 for this. I like a lot of the mons on it. My biggest concern with this team is that it has almost no immediate offense outside of Mega Beedrill and like maybe like Specs Kyurem. Everything else has to set up.
Everything else has to either set up or ramp up. Yeah.
So and you know, not necessarily directly counter to that problem, but also both of these mons are weak to rocks. So and one of them's a mega that can't run boots. So the number of times that you can get one of these like breakers in, if that is how you have to run them.
Yeah. So like running Specs Kyurem means that you're dying pretty easily. Okay, yeah.
So it's like if these are your only 2 immediate offense and they can only come in so many times, you know, you might end up with some issues. So
I do think the team is really reliant on Tinglu, and there's no support for it really. It's kind of like, okay, Tinglu, go in and force something out, I hope, so that I can switch you out and bring in something else, right? I do like the team though, honestly. I still have it at a 7. There's a lot of really good pieces. I think Tinglu Annihilate is really strong. Annihilate is just the premier hazard removal punisher, right? Obviously Defiant and being ghost type is why. I think the speed is okay if you count Delphox and Tinkaton. Obviously they're never like really coming that often.
I think
maybe Tinkaton comes more often than Delphox. But having a drop
I think
off
the matchups
between
that Tinkaton's coming to though is not for its speed. Like the reasons that you would bring Tinkaton more than you would bring Delphox is not because of the speed.
Yep. Having Torn be the fastest and then the next fastest, or sorry, there is a Mega Beedrill. I did forget about that, but so that is a counter to this. But I think having a drop rather between Torn down to Delphox, and if Delphox isn't there, down to Kyurem is pretty tough.
Yeah.
I
also
what else do I think?
Mega Beedrill
I think like it does
fake
lack
speed.
immediate offense, but it does have good setup options, right? Like Terra Shell Smash, Blastoise, and Terra Plot Rotom are just good, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard to deny that. And I think Terra Rotom specifically, it doesn't matter what Rotom form it is, right? At that point, because then you can just run T-Bolt plus
you
Terra
can
Blast.
run 100% accurate stab as Rotom.
Yeah, true. Terra Blast Grass. No, don't actually, but yeah. I think Kyurem is kind of forced into a defensive role along with Tinglu. And then the fairy resist on the team is
Tinkaton,
Checksnow, Tinkaton,
Beedrill,
Delphox. Yeah, when you have Kyurem, Annihilate, and Tinglu, I don't think that's a really good look.
Yeah, that's true.
Very fairy weak. And very dragon weak also. Like again, the only dragon resist is Tinkaton, which I think there's way too much pressure on Tinkaton to come.
And that's not good because then you're bringing Tinkaton.
Yeah. He is a little guy though. Is Tinkaton always female?
Yeah.
Damn. I had no idea. Lee, what do you think?
I like setup heavy teams. They're just stressful to build. They're stressful for me to build against anyway. That obviously Hustle's going to be a little more ready for it. I would hope. But I really like Torn and Tinglu together. I think those two are really they're just really bulky and have like decent coverage between them, I guess, is where I'm going with this.
I think paired specifically with Blastoise, it's very strong because Blastoise is a good spinner. I do think it makes it so that using Blastoise as the Terra Shell Smasher can be harder when you're trying to fit it in with the Torn Tinglu core. But like bulky, just with a helmet, with an AV, with the lefties or something, I think Blastoise can do well on this team. But it's another mon that if you're running it in that role, kind of wishes that you had maybe a Wish Passer or at least like a grass type that had Leech Seed, so that you can switch it in on the fire type and get a little bit extra passive recovery. It's I think it's not optimized to be in the role, but it's good to be in the role.
Yeah.
So I have it at a 7. Honestly,
6,
7.5 I think is fine. Yeah, I think it's a 6. Yeah. I don't think I would go 7.5. I think 7
I'm at a 7. I'm at a 7.5.
Yep, cool. We average out to about a 7 then. Let's move on to our boy Goater 12.
I said 1 out of 10, and I didn't really.
1 out of 10.
It made me promise I said nice things about it since he couldn't make it.
Oh wait, no, I did write notes. I said Sneasler/Rilla sucks. It's a bad.
True.
I said Necrozma hates having grassy terrain. Celesteela wants to be the only mon on the team with Leech Seed and will get jealous of Rillaboom. And on a serious note, dual terrain could make Sneasler's item kind of funky if you don't know what seed.
True. I agree. I think it's definitely not to the same extent as the quadruple weather team by any means. But yeah, there could be situations where you're trying to preserve one of your terrain setters so that you can still keep Sneasler in the back with the seed. Obviously, Sneasler doesn't even need to run a seed. No. Right? I think that could even just be
why you draft him with Rilla, though. Like
yeah, you just run a band, or even you just run like White Herb or normal gem or like whatever gem. You can. Every gem is legal here.
Yeah, you definitely can.
I think the team overall is obviously the most top heavy that we've seen for a little while.
That actually is true.
I think it tied with Afonso for like most expensive top 6 when last season's Afonso team, when he had the triple 20 points.
Yeah.
With like Qiu, Mew, and Bax. So I think this has kind of shades of that, where it's so top heavy that bringing like Miltank, Colossal, Absol can be tough. It's not the end of the world. And I think the mons that you're substituting feel bad to substitute, but at least have clear-cut matchups when they're good or bad. Like Necrozma, you can see from a mile away if it has a good matchup, right? Celesteela, you can see if it has a good setup matchup, or if it has to be bulky, right? And you don't always want to run bulky. Maybe you would just rather bring Miltank for rocks over that, right? Etc. So I do think that even though there is an opportunity cost for subbing things out, I think it is clear-cut when you want to sub things out. So I don't want to hold it against it too much. Terrorilla is really cool.
Yeah, Terrorilla.
It'll probably just run like grass, rock, electric a lot of the time.
Yeah. Or fire sometimes too.
Yeah, fire. Ground even.
Yeah.
I think this is. I think Goder was going for sort of a more refined version of a team that he's drafted before, where he's drafted the Feeny Zygarde Necrozma before, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, season 1.
Yeah. Sorry. We saw Goder play his first battle earlier today, and I won't have any spoilers for the result.
Watch the game.
Yeah, it's a good battle. I won't spoil the result, but I will say that there were times where the Misty Terrain both helped and looked like it hurt the Zygarde. Like not being able to get status by things that came in and wanted to toxic it, but also not being able to toxic things looked a little tough. I think it had to. I'm not even 100% certain.
Yeah.
And I think the hazard removal is kind of questionable when it's either Colossal. Now, Goder is a big believer in Colossal. I'm personally not.
He loves Colossal.
So
Absol Magic Bounce or Feeny Defog, which Feeny coming in and resetting the terrain and removing it kind of, I feel like, defeats a lot of the purpose of running the double terrain. Oh, true. I won't spoil the results, but the doc will. True. Just cover your eyes.
That's why I was covering it up.
Don't look. Now, all this being said, the offense potential and the setup, like the mix-up setups that things have, are actually really crazy. Like Necrozma having Dragon Dance or just running multiple different special sets. Celesteela being bulky or setup, or like how banned even. Same with Sneasler, obviously. Feeny has Calm Mind. Zygarde has multiple setup options, or also just banned. And Rillaboom can SD or just be like bulky pivot. There's a lot of good options for this. And I also know a little bit of spoiler. Goder is also a big fan of Special Mega Absol. Not a spoiler for the battle, but for any of his potential regular season or whatever future opponents while he has Absol.
Special attack.
Yeah, watch out for Special Absol. It has like Thunderbolt. It might have Ice Beam. It has Fire Blast. It has Dark Pulse. It actually has like pretty good coverage. Maybe it has Dazzling Gleam. I don't remember. But it has really good special coverage and a serviceable special attack stat.
Any last thoughts?
I got dizzy trying to evaluate this team because everything looks like a nightmare to prep for, but also the double terrain looks like such a hard thing to pilot around yourself. That I got dizzy trying to evaluate it and just slapped a 7.5 on it.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have the exact same 7.5. It's really, like you said, hard to evaluate. We kind of just have to evaluate Goder as a player and how he will play this. And I think he'll play it well.
Which means that I will stand by my 1 out of 10 that I wrote.
1 out of 10. I agree. So that drops our average to like 5.
Yeah.
Cool. Sucks. All good. Good team.
AZ
Sweet Sorrows. I'm going to pull up the Discord because there were also a lot of big trades for this team.
Yeah, like the first
during
pick,
Grace.
Dondozo is
the
gone.
Dondozo. What the heck?
Gone.
At least Max committed to the bit. Okay. The trades were he picked up Starmie, Volcanion, Ferrothorn, Tyranitar, and Cottony.
That's something.
For Dondozo, Fire Pawn, King Gambit, Tentacruel, Shedinja. So I traded 2 water types for 2 water types. A grass type, a grass fire for a separate grass and a fire. Gambit for a separate steel and a separate dark type, and Tentacruel for a different water as well.
Yeah.
And a different
and
spinner.
And having a poison type as well. Like losing a poison type, I mean.
Yeah, so it no longer has a poison type.
Yeah.
And lost Shedinja, but like whatever.
Yeah. I think that what did I say for this? I said 7 out of 10. I think there's a lot of good like solid mons here, and it has a really good like defensive backbone. And this might be I might be like wrong about this, but I think that it might be overly reliant on running offensive Volcanion and Zapdos in times where that kind of takes away from the defensive backbone. But really, I guess like Gliscor is kind of covering a lot of what Zapdos wants to cover, like fighting types, and still like it's not like Zap wants to eat things with ice coverage, so it doesn't really like have anything better in that sense. And the neutral to electric doesn't matter for Gliscor either. Volcanion, like, not the end of the world if it can't be defensive either, because like you can just run specs Volcanion. But I'm kind of a big proponent of like AV Volcanion too. And it might not be able to run that set as much if you don't have the breaking power in the rest of the team. That being said, I did kind of like forget about like knockoff Tyranitar. Like Tyranitar can just be super offensive beast now too. But maybe a little overlap like with what Gliscor does offensively. Not that Gliscor.
Yeah, it almost feels like there's a lot of overlap. Like you see the Gliscor and the Zapdos, you see the double water. But I feel like it's actually not bad. If anything, I wish there was something, at least something, to use the sand. But it's really not. I don't feel like it's a big deal. Even just looking at like Gliscor Zapdos, a lot of the times, defensive mons that are trying to answer Zapdos will just run Toxic, and Gliscor is there to do what Zapdos does into like fighting matchups, into ground matchups, into flying matchups sometimes, but is just immune to the Toxic, and vice versa, right? Zapdos can try and come in on things that are trying to take on Gliscor if it's like more of a specially defensive Zapdos. Yeah. And if it's that Gliscor or vice versa.
Not ice, but you also have Volcanion for ice types.
Yeah, so the steel type doesn't resist ice, but having a 4 times ice resist and Starmie as well, I think is really clutch. And it's different from like Polito's team where he just had Keldeo as the water type. If Starmie was the only water type, I would have problems. But having 2 water types and both of them are Terra Captains,
really
actually not a problem.
I will say though, like Volcanion as a Terra Captain, I'm sure has its potential offensively, but it also has one of the best typings in the game, or at least the most unique typings in the game that like makes it valuable. I don't know how often you really want to be swapping off of that.
Yeah, that's
especially
fair.
if it is your
having an immunity, having an immune ability just makes it more possible.
With Water Absorb,
like being a ground type now, I think is really strong.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else. What was the other thing I noticed with this?
I think Screen Tail looks really good on this team too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Even though there's double psychic, like T-Tar,
they're very different psychics.
Yeah, T-Tar switches in on them all day.
Psychics, but
and then like also just wish passing or getting leech seeds off with Ferrothorn, just keeping Tyranitar healthy is gonna lead to that sand chip really
and Ferrothorn
adding up.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is a really good take on having a strong backbone that's flexible enough to be offensive.
Yeah.
Like
this is
Volcanion
how I would
offensive, Pharaoh can be offensive, Zapdos, Gliscor. Like I'd say Screentail is kind of the exception, and even then you can just run setup on it still.
And every game we're just gonna see sub-toxic Gliscor, and it's gonna
I think this is an example of a team kind of like what you were describing when we were looking at Alice's team, where I think Alice's leans way more into the defensive side. I think this is a team that has a solid defensive backbone that all of these mons can be defensive. I mean, not all of, but like, you know what I mean? Most of them can be, but they are way more flexible to lean to those offensive sets and to just put that offensive pressure out. Yeah. So I like this team a lot because I like that, even though you could say like, Gliscor could be on a stall team. Ferrothorn isn't usually on a stall team, but it's just defensive wall. Volcanion is hard to break. Screamtail could be on stall.
So I agree. I think you're saying that this is what you think of balance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is what I would consider still balance, but skirting on the edge of bulky offense, which are different. I think people assume that bulky offense and balance are fairly similar, but there's actually a pretty big distinction.
I think I agree that there's a distinction, but I don't think that this is leaning more towards bulky offense. I think T-Tar is bulky offense, and maybe Zapdos is bulky offense, and maybe Volcanion.
Gliscor.
But I feel like Gliscor is a little more defensive than bulky offense. It depends. It depends on the set. It could be either.
Yeah, I mean, saying depends on the set means that it can be a bulky offense.
Yeah. But I also think that I don't think most people are running offensive Ferrothorn, even though you can. I think of
banded Power Whip.
When I think of bulky offense, I'm honestly thinking in the context of Gen 9, where there are so many mons that are offensive mons, but just for some reason have cracked out defensive stats for absolutely no reason. And then they just kind of are passively bulky offense. That's what I think of when I think of bulky offense, just because so many of those mons exist now. But I think if you're thinking like past gen context, then I could see this being more of a bulky offense, where T-Tar is more of your example of this one has an incredible attack stat, but also just has really good defenses. It's like now you're comparing it to Paradox mons.
For comparison, Matt's team is bulky offense.
Let me see.
Right, where it relies on having high defensive stats, so you don't need to invest into it. And just running full offense.
I agree with.
This is bulky offense.
Yes. Where were we?
With balance elements, because you have the wish passing and the regen.
Yeah.
Whereas this is definitely more balance with bulky offense elements.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Okay. And then Alice's team is closer to stall, where it's like balance with balance stall elements. Capabilities. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's stall with balance elements. But what was the other thing that the really one thing I like about this for a team that doesn't splash, that doesn't have anything to really splash with the sand, I like that Gliscor and Ferrothorn don't care about sand. Like for all the defensive mons that you could have with this team that isn't benefiting from sand otherwise, these two mons really like having it around them defensively, and Zapdos doesn't really care, and Screamtail doesn't really care. They're both bulky enough that they're not really too concerned about that extra chip, and they're probably going to like it more. Like Screamtail likes that extra damage on its target if it's just sitting there.
Even Lop
base 65
Lop is running Fake Out, right?
Yeah,
Fake Out basically just has 6.25% extra damage when sand is up.
Yeah, though I will say maybe Lop could be a slight dislike of it as well, because you're sitting in it for an extra turn a lot of times.
I mean, it doesn't really care what its HP is at, right? It rarely actually takes hits. It usually dies to like a combination of percent chip damage, like Helmet.
I think Helmet's
like rocks and stuff.
The big thing
so it does
annoying for it.
Yeah,
though.
It does eat into that.
But you have Ferrothorn.
But like being rock resistant, it's not like Mega Beedrill, right? Where it dies the same way as Mega Lop.
Yeah, you resist rocks. That's true.
Yeah, it's so much more.
I would think of it almost as kind of like having a life orb on Mega Lop, which isn't the end of the world. There are similar pivots and fake out mons like that will run life orb. Yeah, like if it's worth it, but in that sense, it's also not up at all times, so it's not like you always have it. And I think that the resisting rocks is also a good point, because you're not taking the chip coming in.
Yeah. Lee, what do you think about the hazard game on the team?
This team is really, really good at applying hazard pressure, in that Ferrothorn, Tyranitar, Gliscor all love stacking it, and then Starmie is a really good spinner, and Zapdos is a really big defogger, and also Screamtail can also take rocks as well, but because you're so stretched on things that can click rock, you don't ever actually have to look at Stealth Rock on Screamtail either.
Yeah.
So
and Gliscor can also defog too.
Yep. And Volcanion.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, Volcanion too. I forgot about that too.
Yeah, I think the hazards are crazy good. And it honestly doesn't really mind them if the opponent sets them up either. Assuming Zapdos is like
wearing boots.
Even if somebody knocks it off, you get a para chance on the contact.
Yeah.
Gliscor doesn't care. Lop doesn't really care.
And Volcanion can wear boots.
Pharaoh doesn't really care. Now, I will say it is basically an 8-mon roster. Continuity's not coming. But the lowest point mon on the team is Screamtail.
Yeah.
At 12. And that's kind of crazy. I think this is the most stretched out we've seen a team that isn't only an 8-mon roster.
Yeah.
And I really like it, actually. This actually screams to me like an AZ team.
Scream.
I love 8-mon rosters, dude.
Yeah.
They're kind of my jam.
Yeah.
After talking through, I don't really know why I had this at a 7. I think it was more focused on that lack of the offense, but I actually don't even think that's really true anymore.
I'm ready to bring it up to an 8 or an 8.5.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite teams. I have it at 8.5. It could be an 8. But I'm willing to highball it because I think it's cool. So there you go, dude. Good team.
Cool. DJ Barrera.
Okay, we have 2 teams left. This is kind of the silly team that we...
I have 10
I don't know
out of 10 don't question the master. Those are my notes.
Yeah. The fastest mon is Checksnote's Mega Glalie.
100. Hey, the fastest one is also Chi-Yu.
Isn't Glalie 105?
No, Glalie's 100. They're both.
Okay, well, there you go. Any thoughts?
No.
All right.
I said this team, the top heavy part of this team is just really good at hitting things. Yep. Chi-Yu, Ursaluna, Goldengo, Tapu, Urshi. They're all just top tier threats that love clicking buttons, that just dare you to stay in and try and wall them. There are no pivots that get them in safely.
Yeah. It reminds me of whose team was? I think it was Krabbit's team, where it reminded me of the soccer team full of kids when all the parents drop the kids off and throw them onto the field and they don't practice, they don't think of any strategy, they just go chase the ball around. Yeah. I think that's this. Yeah. Now, I will say, okay, I know I'm notorious for hating Slurpuff, but honestly, DJ Barrera is the guy that I would trust to use Slurpuff and make it a 17-point mon. I don't know if you guys watched his battle against Max.
I did.
It sauced him up, dude.
To be fair,
up, threw him into a stew and served him for soup to the homeless.
To be fair, Max is also the player that I would expect to make Slurpuff look like a 17-point mon on the other side.
True. Very true, very true.
I want to see Mega Glalie in the snow. I don't know if there's ever room to bring it. But just stuff makes me think Mega Glalie with like an extra 120 in its stat instead of an 80 is almost sounds real to me. So I wanted to fit it on my backs team 2 seasons ago and couldn't. And
it almost feels like, why would you bring it over the backs? And why would you bring it over, same with here, over Arctozolt?
Yeah.
Right? It's a Terra Arctozolt. I feel like if you're bringing a Abomasnow, you don't want 3 ice types. You would rather Arctozolt.
Yeah, it might just be relegated to Spike Bot in some matchup.
Yeah, Spike does it have Explosion?
It might. It does have Explosion.
Yeah, I think that'll be
Refrigerate Explosion.
Why is this?
But yeah,
finish what you're saying.
the spikes on Mega Glalie and the webs on Slurpuff are like the only hazards you get for Golden Go to like keep up the pressure. Oh, true. My bad. I guess you open up a spot on Smeargle since it doesn't have to run webs.
True.
Which cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Next.
Yeah. There's a lot of everything is going to have a scarf if you want to even contest speed at all. Outside of Arctozolt, like Scarf Chi-Yu, Scarf Lele, Scarf Goldengo, Scarf Urshi. They're all good Scarf users, to be clear. But are you gonna actually run that many? I don't think so. I think if I know DJ Barrera, he's rather than running Scarf, he's gonna say, "Hope my webs stick. I'm gonna Terra Ghost the Slurpuff so they have to stick," and then run Specs Goldengo, Specs Urshi, Band Urshi, Specs Chi-Yu, Specs Lele, and just kill you.
And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, same. I'm here for it, dude. So honestly, like, it's a goofy team, and if this team was like in Truant and somebody just drafted it because they didn't know it was bad, I'd say like 2 or 3 out of 10, like 4 on a good day if they were a reputable player in Truant. but seeing DJ Barrera's name above the team at least makes me bring it up to like a 5, where I'm like, all right, I want to give this guy a pass so that he doesn't change the team and just shows me what he's got.
Why is the best fire swap on this team with 3 ice types that don't even neutral that aren't even neutral to fire? Carbink.
Yeah.
like
another one
like
that I can actually
Urshifu
see
doesn't want to
running.
come in on a fire type that might burn him. Chiyu doesn't
Yeah.
want. I mean, Chiyu can, but how many times are you putting Chiyu in as a defensive swap?
Yeah.
and you have Goldengo as well. You have 3 ice types and Goldengo, and your best fire resist is Carbink at 1 point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we'll see. I think it's a really funny team, and
Yeah.
it's the one like hustle team that I'm like, obviously this is an outlier and it's bad, like objectively through the metrics that we're looking at and like through that lens, it's a terrible team. but I can actually see it like getting some wins, making playoffs. I don't know if I would go that far, and hopefully he proves me wrong and
Maybe
and
you
gets there
won't
with
go
this
that
team.
far,
That would be
but
really
he will.
funny.
All right, let's go on to Rice Man.
Yeah, let's move on to our final team, Rice Man.
Rice Man.
I like this team. I'll just start by saying I have it at an 8 out of 10.
That's what I have too.
I like the speed, specifically Cinderace and Ogerpon. I feel like complement each other really well because it's Terrapon and gets the speed boost. They're 2 things that actually can pivot into each other very nicely. And start to wear down like defensive dragons that might be trying to check both of them at the same time. Just U-turning in and out. Pawn forcing out the water types into the steel type, and then U-turning on the steel type into Cinderace that brings in the water type that Ogerpon just switched out. And like it really has elements that can put opponents through the blender.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on top of teleport Pori 2 as well.
Yeah.
Pori 2 plus Megamaw is a tried and true Trick Room core, where the slow teleport into the Mawile, Intimidate, into just getting 4 attacks off and killing everything is really good. And funny thing, I actually had at first that there was a negative between the overlap of Megamaw and Iron Hands. And I was talking about it with Glumly actually the other night. Maybe it was last night actually. Yeah, it was last night. Where it's like, yeah, I feel like just having 2 similar mons with Mawile and Iron Hands is a negative. And he brought up the point where like, yeah, but like, don't you wish you could have 2 Mega Mawiles on the same team? And it made me realize, maybe having something that's really similar but different in type makes it so that the other one just does its job better.
I think they're similar in like the execution, but yeah, they seem like completely different in terms of what they cover.
Yeah, I mean, like just from a role perspective of high defense, high attack.
Yeah, but I think that's fine,
right? And slow
with a Trick Room.
Yeah,
right.
So like they're both flexible in the Trick Room. Don't need to have it, but appreciate it.
Yeah.
Terra Moltres I think is really strong. Weezing Galar is I feel like a Rice Man special at this point.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one.
And Latios is good. I don't know. I think this team is so good. It has a lot of really good elements. The speed is really strong as well.
I said it was 8 out of 10, so I agree with you. But I said like this team doesn't really feel like it has mons that are like past Geezing. I'm. It's kind of weird. It's like these are 7 points worth of mons, but I mean maybe Rhydon does something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you just needed a ground type, and then the rest of the points didn't matter.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of interesting to see because like I think it's still a good team without these 4, but it's a full roster, but like I just kind of ignore the bottom group. The other thing
that is the low light of the team is having Rhydon as the ground type for sure.
Yeah, the other thing I noticed is that Latios is really the only special attacker besides Moltres. And nobody's
Moltres
higher than...
P2 I would say could count if you're running download.
I guess, but are you like? I feel like most of the time you're probably bringing it defensively if it's fitting into a team.
But like having decent special attack with Bolt Beam is usually good enough.
Yeah, but I'm saying like if somebody's feeling threatened by like special attack on a team, like having a 110 as your highest, I don't think is at least in the era of power creep that we're in today, like 110 is the highest, isn't great, or at least like even Latios is awesome, but I think for a 16-point Latios, it loses some of that flexibility when you might be relying on it a little more than usual to run full offense. It with Moltres kind of has really the only other 100% of the time special attacker on the team.
Yeah, and even that 100 special attack is pretty low.
It's and it's like it relies on that kind of like gimmicky setup. I don't want to say it's like too gimmicky because it's a reliable gimmick, but it's still a gimmicky setup for it to get that power. Then I noticed that Glimmet has 105 special attack, and I don't know why, but it's there. Specs Glimmet.
Yeah.
Go for it. In the Trick Room, honestly, in Trick Room, Specs Glimmet might be kind of strong.
Okay, like, hold up. Maybe he's cooking. Wait, does Glimmet have Meteor Beam too?
Maybe. I don't know.
Look it up.
Let's find out.
It does have Meteor Beam. All right, we found it.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, Glimmet has 105 special attack. That's actually like not bad.
Power.
Like
that's what I'm talking about with this power creep though, because that means that Glimora is like 130 or 40, right? I forget what it was. Who had Glimora?
Glimora, yeah, I think it's like 140, 145 or something. It's like actually a crazy special attack.
130.
It's 130? Oh, okay.
But it's still like if you're comparing it to Gen 3 Legendary that is a special attacker. Like,
yeah, true.
But I don't know. So that was like really the one downside I see with it is that Latios doesn't really get its full range of flexibility, but I also don't think that's enough of a downside to really knock it too hard because realistically, if you're limited with Latios, it's still going to be doing a lot of Latios things.
Yeah.
And setup Latios is still offensively threatening too, so it's not like you're losing that. It's just moved into setup.
I think a lot of the team's special defense comes from two knockoff weak mons too, which I have spoken about this before about like the running weakness policy on the Latios when Pori 2 baits it kind of thing. Like it is actually like not that bad, and I'm always coming back to that because AZ brought that. He had Latios on his like completely NFE team, and it was almost always weakness policy because of that, which is pretty funny. But I think P2 and Latios specifically work pretty well together and kind of enables that weakness policy set on Latios a little bit better, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than running like assault vest hands, or like bulky Moltres.
I was gonna say like some kind of bulky Moltres. That's 125 base special defenses. Not bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't really believe in Moltres as a defensive mon.
Probably not. It has roots, right?
No, it doesn't.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's insane. Okay, never mind.
It's split and rest. But
wow, that is so
roost.
weird that it doesn't have roost.
None of the Galar
none of the Galar ones? Yeah, wow.
Yeah, even Articuno just has recover.
At least it has recover though. A Gyapdos, I feel like I can understand not having it because it's also like not. It's a flightless bird. So
I mean, look at him though. He's running around a lot. Don't you think he'll get tired? Bro's got to take a little roost.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this team is great. I do think it's a little bit physically inclined, like you said, but and it lacks a good ground type.
The physical inclination that it has is obscene though, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's still strong. I know he was mentioning that maybe he was going to drop Mawile or look to trade it. That may still happen. It may still be cooking. He was trying to trade it for Melmetal? I don't remember.
Is Melmetal open?
No, it's not. Somebody else had it.
Who has it?
Yeah, Fennec has it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, well, that was the last one. Do we want to just look at these?
Yeah, let's take a look at the standings again. Yeah.
I
not surprised to see Max #1 for BST with the mono, legendary, and mythical and paradox.
Yeah.
Legendary adjacent.
Yeah.
I am surprised that DJ Barrera is not at the bottom of speed though. I'm guessing that these are just some outliers that bring these way down.
I'm surprised Riceman's not at the bottom of speed.
True. Well, okay, it's not surprising that Alice is the bottom of speed.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
What else we got? Who's got the highest attack? Gensuzu, Zeb makes sense on the Sand team. Fennec has the highest special attack. Can you go back to Fennec's team? Isn't that the Garchomp team? Oh, it's a Lando team. Sorry. Highest special attack. I guess it's just Mega Gardevoir carrying.
Yeah,
and
really,
like Lando
really
has a higher
boosts it.
special attack than their average. Like,
Yeah.
Oh wait, true. Lando has it has the same special attack as Rotom.
Yeah.
Higher than Infernape, notable mixed attacker. And I think maybe it's also carried by the fact that the two low tiers don't have abysmal special attack too.
Yeah, there's nobody with a
Like
really
Chimecho having
low one
95
bringing it
actually helped it a
down.
lot.
I'm actually curious to see like who
Interesting.
like, the individual lowest for some of these are. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, you look at this bottom tier like this special, the 30 special attack on Tor. Hey, granted, that's not even a low tier. But I mean,
Yeah, but then the, like Carbink that have like its awful
Right,
HP
yeah.
and speed that bring things down, etc.
yeah. Yeah. 47 attack.
Mise, yeah.
Yeah. On the team with 160, 120, 100, 110, 130.
Yeah, true.
I'm actually, where is he at? Attack.
7th.
Yeah. Brings it down.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think honestly the teams are really good, and like I said, the difference between the peak and the trough is much smaller for me here, with the exception of DJ Barara. But even then, like the lowest in the division, including the troll team, is 5.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to the others that I think all of them had teams with failing grades. For me personally, on like my scoring system.
What was Swarm besides? Because I feel like, I mean, mine's a meme team too. So I don't know if
What
you
was
count that.
Swarm's worst teams?
Yeah, because I remember I gave mine a 3, but I don't think I gave anything else in Swarm that low.
I didn't actually rate yours. I just said monkey
Yeah.
out of 10,
I mean,
and we moved on.
It's a 3 or lower. So
Yeah, it's
I would
definitely
still
worse than
consider that a
DJ's
failing
team.
grade. I know I gave a few like below 5 in Truant, but
I gave Hal Falcons a 4.
Was that Swarm?
Yeah, that's in Swarm. And Roy Ace was a 4.5.
Okay. So yeah.
So yeah, I think honestly draft went pretty well. I do
Yeah.
think it was a competitive draft. There were a few people who had different values on different mons. For example, Zap first picking like Darmagalar, for example, probably wouldn't happen, but that's just he values Darmg and Arrow more than other people do.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see how some of those people show that their values are legit. And I'm also interested to see how the other 14, 13 of them who were spread really thin in a competitive draft setting will show their draft powers.
Yeah.
Sounds like they have a superpower, but like their draft ability rather.
By the way, I noticed
The
something,
strength of your team.
and I don't know if this is real, but did you just like fill this in for the poll or something?
So, okay, I'm not sure. Maybe Monkey Boy can shed some light on this, actually. If you're still around, let us know. I don't think Monkey Boy actually used the account I'm not telling you. I think in like season 2 or 3, when he signed up, I put in the thing, like the field to say what your showdown name was. He said, "I'm not telling you." And I kind of knew it was a joke, but I put it into the doc literally just to kind of troll him, and I think he ran with it.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that's the account that he uses now.
I wasn't sure because I saw that. I was like, is this supposed to be this? Or like, is somebody actually going to have a hard time finding him?
No, he has been using that account legitimately.
Because it's hard enough. Like you see him in Discord, and then you look here and you see like, oh, who is this gentleman?
Monkey Boy, what's your show?
We
I'm not
don't
telling you.
recognize either of these.
Yeah. So maybe you can shed some light. If he doesn't answer in chat, maybe we'll.
I
I'll
haven't
just
seen
bring
him
the
say
Discord.
anything since. Pretty
Yeah,
long
he was
time
here for a
ago.
little, and then dipped, I think, before we got to his
and we're
team.
down to 4 people, so I doubt he's still here.
Yeah.
But,
So yeah, I guess to close it out, thanks to specifically to FennekMaster for sticking it out the whole time.
yeah.
DJ Barraros, good to see you around. Lethal made a stop in here for a little while. Deb was around for most of the review, I believe. Definitely from the beginning.
Yeah.
I guess a
AZ
Friday
dropped
night makes it a
in.
little easier for EU.
Polito dropped in. Maybe left after his review.
Yeah. Max was here
Bunhara
early
was
on.
around and tricked us into thinking she was. She
I
was.
don't think she's ever said she was EU. I don't know where that came from.
I don't
No,
know.
somebody said it. I don't think she said it. think
Did I
somebody else
say
said
that?
it.
Maybe. Why did I say that?
The chat is.
I'm reading the chat, and definitely nobody said that Bun is
Maybe
EU.
I just had it
but when
mixed up.
I asked for the list of people that are EU, you gave me that name. So
I think that was just bad info from me. I don't know why. And then I looked at the page and I'm like, there was something off in my mind. I'm like, I don't think this is true.
Yeah.
Maybe I had them mixed up with Alice. I don't know. But even I did say Alice. I don't know. Anyway, I think that closes out our team review. It was a good
Close
run.
out all of them.
We had 3 consecutive days of like a few hours of content in a row.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
And not a
We
single replay
appreciate
is
you
watched.
guys coming out to chat with us while we're doing it. Make sure to check the VOD if you want to watch the rest of it. If you missed any of it, there's also yesterday's Swarm reviews and Wednesday's Truant reviews on the channel. If you go to the live tab on our channel, you can see our VODs. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the Discord.
Timestamps as well.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, and I will add timestamps.
Timestamps on them.
But
yeah.
there are timestamps on the.
There are for the past ones, and there will be for this one probably tonight.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, good job, everybody.
Later, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for
Good
tuning
luck.
in again, guys.
A lot
Bye-bye.
of
Yeah,
games
good
this
luck.
weekend.
Fun.
Stay
Yes.
tuned for next week when we might do the first replay review.
True.
So start
Ice
suggesting
On
highlights.
this close time sharp.
Channel's open. Yeah, 6 o'clock p.m. EST sharp.
EDT.
EDT, that's right. It is EDT now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah.